Okay, reconvening the Joint Committee on Ways and Means and Energy, Economic Development and Tourism. Okay, so we left off with Office of Planning, and I think the next program ID is BED 150, which is HHFBC.
Good afternoon, Chair Dela Cruz, Chair DeCoit,
150.
Vice Chair
Oh, sorry.
Agaran.
No. 160.
BED 160, Hawaii Housing Finance and Development Corporation. With us today is Denise Isari Matsubara, who's Executive Director of HHFDC, myself, David Director, and Dane Wicker, Deputy Director. And I believe the HHFDC staff is behind as well. The first item is the Rental Housing Revolving Fund infusion of fiscal year 24, 200 million means of financing A funds, and fiscal year 25, 200 million means of financing A funds. This request aligns with the request made by the governor in his 2023 State of the State address to support renters across the state by lowering the cost barriers to developing affordable rentals. RHR funds provides financing for equity gap low interest loan program for developers to incentivize the construction, acquisition, or preservation of affordable rental housing projects. Funding for Tier 1 and Tier 2 financing of $100 million each for each year of the fiscal biennium. And again, Denise is here to answer specific questions about RHRF projects.
So for those projects, what's your capacity for getting out that money, and what would be your timetable? Do you have the capacity right now to get that money out?
Good afternoon, Denise Matsubara, HHFBC. Thank you very much for the question. So right now, our capacity is based on our current performance and past performance. We awarded about 178 million of Tier 1 last year and 142 million in Tier 2 funds for a total of 320 million this past year. The year before that, in rental housing revolving funds, we awarded about 160 million. So our capacity right now is limited mainly by the bond cap, the private activity bond cap. So we could go further with Tier 2, and that was passed out of Act 36. That allowed us to keep that financing pipeline going for another 760 units and another 142 million.
But with the private activity bonds, I think we kind of directed that the counties try to use their money. And in the past, the city wasn't, but I think at the briefing that the mayors provided to the committee, they indicated they are going to try to use their bond cap, especially the city, I think, because they have the largest amount, I think. So that have you had further discussions? I thought that you and I thought that Mayor Blangiardi indicated that he would be meeting with you to discuss that.
So thank you for the question. So regarding bond cap, the IRS sets the limit for the state, and then the state under the Hawaii revised statute sets allocations for the county. So as far as I know right now, only Honolulu and Kauai County has elected to retain their caps. Honolulu has the bulk at 37.5%. So last year, I think it was 126 million. This year, I think it's like 139 million. We are still trying to work it out. I think they're working on standing up a bond issuance program. We're trying to work out their bond issuance. Our LIHTC has to coordinate. And I even offered help to administer some of their applications so that we can keep the bonds rolling. So that discussion is still ongoing. We have to figure it out, but they're amenable to working that out.
Okay. So you think there's enough room then to be able to get out 200 million?
So if I look at our past performance, it looks like it's doable because we've just done 320 if we can do the Tier 2. Mm-hmm. And then certainly if we work out a program by which, we in the city are coordinating bond cap.
Now, the city indicated they were going to be fairly aggressive. So would this 200 million be directed to the neighbor islands if the city is going to try to use up its share of the capacity?
That's a really good question, Senator. So we wouldn't be able to just direct the rental housing revolving funds. It would go according to the criteria in the consolidated application process. And my understanding from the city is they don't have a big enough gap financing program to assist all their bonds. So they're gonna have to come in, those projects are gonna have to come in to ask for the state rental housing revolving funds as well.
Okay. So this actually fits in as long as you can work out some of the details. with the city.
Correct.
But could we designate 160 for tier one and 40 for tier two?
You can definitely designate. What I would suggest, Chair, is including a proviso that allows flexibility, because if you don't have enough qualified applications.
For tier
at
one,
level,
yeah.
right. You want to be able to go into and.
So we could
vice
say at least a
versa.
minimum of 40 should be for tier two. And then that way, if you don't fill up your whole tier one, then you can move that left over to
Right.
tier two.
And as long as there's some kind of flexibility to move it, so 150 out of the 300 million.
But you think you can spend at least 40 on tier two?
It depends on the timing.
Okay, you
when
go back and you guys go research
gotta
and figure out what,
the developer.
because then I think at
Yeah.
least the minimum amount of tier two, because we should try to do more tier two.
Yes, yes.
Because if not, we're only focusing on the real low end and we
Yeah,
want to
at
try to
least
get,
maybe 50, I think, 50 to 50 million, maybe 75 million, because you need more of it to make a project work without. lights
yeah.
out.
That's why the 40 might not be enough.
Yes,
But this is on appeal, but we're anticipating on this one, at least the governor should be amenable to doing, since he mentioned this, right, in the state of the state.
well, yeah, I couldn't speak on behalf of him, but I would imagine it's to keep the pipeline going, and it's that middle income group that really doesn't have any other programs, and it's our workforce.
Yeah, so that's the tier two.
Correct. 80 to 100% AMI.
Okay, so if you guys can take a look at that and trying to get back to us on if we were to at least earmark a minimum amount for tier two and then language for flexibility so that you can, if you have more tier one or less tier one, that money can be moved for tier two.
Because as long as there's some kind of a proviso language that allows flexibility between the two tiers.
Yeah, but you're aware of people or developers that are willing to apply for tier two type of projects.
They are willing. What they need is surety. They won't plan or shift their plans until they know there's actually going to be money there. So they've already started plans, but they would have to shift. And, maybe they were doing for sale. And if they know there's some surety for money there, that's when they will shift, but it involves so much time, energy, and money,
The
right, to
lag,
do that. So
yeah.
they need some surety. So I don't know if the funds that we get this year are always for the next cycle.
Yeah.
So as long as we bear that in mind.
I mean, if we can see some result of that, then it gives us then next year, we can see, where we should be putting, if we should be putting more into tier two, if there's a higher demand than what we anticipate.
Sure. We will see what happens because we just ran a tier two round and we awarded 4 projects. So we'll see how they come
And how much
along.
was all that?
142 million for 700. So one will be Pohukaina in Kakaako, 690 Pohukaina. That was awarded to High Ridge Costa. We have another one on the Big Island. And a couple others. So there's 4 projects that got tier 2 from this past round because
From the 320.
from the Act 236, that 300 million,
Yeah.
150 million was carved out for tier 2.
Oh, that's good.
This works. So they have to shift on a
So the
dime.
50 is actually low.
Yeah, so you might need it, maybe about 100.
But you're gonna go back and take a look. We
gotta go back
Before
and
they
see.
were awarded, how many applications came?
For tier 1
You
and
awarded
tier 2.
4 for tier 2.
I think we got like 8. I want to say, I think we got double that amount. I'm sorry, we got 11. 11 tier 2. And the total request was 330 million for 1,416 units.
So if you had more money, you could have awarded more, or those other You said 7 applications, just didn't cut it.
Yeah, not necessarily because the cost, they were asking for way too much on a per unit basis. So we really gotta take a look at it. So the other ones were Coa Vista, and Kahuina, Block C, Stanford Car, and Kakaako as well.
Okay, so this 200 is actually the vice chair is saying you reasonable enough to be able to
Reasonable,
spend.
and you might want to consider a split 100 tier 1, 100 tier 2.
But allow
Right.
language that's flexible.
Yes, as long as there's some flexibility.
Yeah. And then you said in these circumstances, we cannot be project specific because it's out for application and
Yes, yes, it's by criteria. Each application has to be analyzed for project feasibility, risk, how shovel ready, developer experience, cost per unit. There's so much that has to be analyzed.
okay, the 250.
Well, thank you, Chair. Dwelling and revolving fund infusion of fiscal year 24. I just heard today that we're moving it down to 150 million. And means of financing A funds, fiscal year 25, 150 million means of financing A funds. So change that on the spreadsheet to from 250 down to 150 for each year.
So why did you guys change it?
I believe that there are going to be, based on your comments or to the office of the governor and working with Denise and their team and Nani Maderos, that they said that 150 should go to DERF. I think they're going to then have it for other projects as well, as far as that $1 billion in the state of state.
So
No.
you're thinking 100 million mine homes and to the other agencies then?
I can't speak as to where those monies are. I was just told that just today that it'd be 150 million as the request.
Okay,
for it.
so in your conversation with the governor's office, the strategy of adding more money to DERF and then having other agencies apply it is no longer going to be the strategy.
I would ask Denise, did you have that conversation? Because I was just told that this is what was best for DERF is 150 million and 150 million.
So Chair, if I could interject, our projections for DERF really consist of 60 million, but we want to align with the governor's state of the state. And in our latest communication with the chief housing officer, the request is 300 million, for which we have 60 million of specific project.
Yeah, but now it's down to 150, so not 300.
So I think it's 150 and
150 and 150. So that's why she's saying 300.
for
Sorry.
each fiscal year.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yes, correct.
Okay, so if HHFTC has about $60 million worth of projects, in your conversations with the governor's office, what's the other
And
90?
Deputy Director had conversation as well. And so we understand that there are projects they are pursuing that either can come from applications, even land
From-
acquisition as
From
well.
where?
From where?
Yeah.
We don't have specific projects identified, but it is
No,
in
but so which
conversation.
departments are going to be applying?
It could be HHFDC purchasing it itself as well. Purchasing land or moving forward on projects.
From the 150A funds.
Correct. And so that Denise has identified
So from the 60 million, how much of that is land acquisition?
So far as I can tell, possibly only the 15 million for Kaho'apili DERF loan, but that's just a presumption.
And that's a HHFTC.
That's the HHFBC project, if they come in for tool 1H. The caveat with
So
this-
what does that mean? You guys still own the property?
No, they would come in for a loan to use it to purchase.
Okay, but I thought he had said that HHFTC direct purchase on property.
we're looking at that as one of the expenditures for the dwelling unit revolving funds.
But so,
Aside from this list, I think.
so how often do you use DERF to go purchase property for HHFTC?
It's not a regular practice, but it's allowable
Yeah,
and
when was the last time?
Chris Woodard, our chief planner.
Okay, you gotta.
Give him the mic.
Sorry. Yeah, so in recent years, we've purchased the land under Front Street Apartments in Lahaina, Maui. That was to preserve the long-term affordability of that project. We've also purchased the land under Kamakea Vista in Kakaako. In that case, we own the leasehold interest
Yeah, so do
already.
you have projects like that that you're thinking about?
So I don't believe we have any budgeted in the 60 million. I believe what.
No, but I'm talking about the 90. So you're asking for 150, that's what he said. So 60 spoken for with these projects. So I want to know what the other 90's for.
We're working on that with the Office of Housing or with the Chief Housing Officer. And we can identify those moving forward.
But you're asking for the money now.
Yes, for expenditure in fiscal year 24.
Okay. Okay, so how soon can you get that list of what the 90 is gonna comprise of?
We'll get to you as soon as we put that list together. I don't know the time frame right now.
Because how did you even come up with 90?
Working with the Chief Housing Officer.
You know, so usually when you come before us, you're looking, you know what you're gonna buy, you have a budget for that, or what you're gonna use it for. So you're telling us, you don't normally say, oh, let's see, I want to spend 500 million. And then I say,
Understood.
how are you spending? Oh, I don't know. Let me go spend 500 million and get back to you.
Understood. And we'll get that information to you as soon as we put it together.
So just give me a date.
I think February 15th would be a reasonable date. Pending further conversations with the office and our office and with the Senate as well.
Okay, we're holding you to that date.
Thank you, sir. Okay, the next all of them, the rest I believe are are special funds.
But does HHFTC have any properties in mind that they would like to purchase?
Denise.
Call on Dean Minakami, our development branch. I don't know of any offhand right now.
I mean, I understand that if you're negotiating, you don't want to say which property, but do you have specific properties in mind?
Good afternoon, Senator. At this time, we do not have properties in mind to acquire.
Are you gonna try to look for some based on what they're telling us?
Yes, we will have to coordinate with the chief housing officer in the GOV's office.
Okay. Okay, so that's all gonna happen by February 15th. That we'll get a list.
Yes, we will work on that list and provide it by that. That's the deadline we are putting out there to comply with. Yes.
Okay, well, I guess you guys are gonna be looking for properties in the next 48 hours, because it's in 2 weeks. Okay. Okay, the rest is all special funds for HHFTC.
Yes,
What
sir.
is that? Revolving fund.
Yes, sir. So number 3 is increased ceiling for fringe benefits for housing administrator in fiscal year 24 and fiscal year 25. As a result of the increases in salary pursuant to collective bargaining agreements, allocation of funding of these collective bargaining agreements was insufficient to cover the commensurate fringe benefits. Add 1 new exempt position in housing administration and funding of salaries and fringe benefits for fiscal year 24.
Okay. How much of this was on table 4?
Look that up. Denise, you know.
Did you guys ask for the housing coordinator in the first one too?
If table four is the original round one, I think all we had was a transfer.
Transfer out, transfer.
Yeah, it's just internal transfer from one unit to the other to consolidate our leasing operations and property management in one
Okay.
unit instead of splitting them up. That's Waihole and Villages of Kapolei
So,
managing that.
so is that in round two? Oh no, but they already had accepted your.
Yeah,
Your
so that's
table four,
separate. And then
yeah.
the round two was
This.
positions, actual positions.
So how did you guys? Did you ask the previous administration for the housing? New position?
We were told no unless it's emergency. So this round two is when we're asking.
So, but you were gonna ask.
Yes.
Oh, okay,
Yes.
okay. What is the next one then?
Add one new exempt position in housing admin, and funding
Ceiling
of salaries.
increase.
Oh, increase ceiling for
Yeah.
executive director and executive assistant salaries and fringe benefits in order to cover the statutory limits provided under HRS 201H.
Okay, so
both
the next three are all
increases,
fringe benefit,
except number 7 is add 3 new exempt positions in housing development and funding for salaries and fringe and half-year
So was
funding.
that those three positions, were you gonna ask the previous administration too?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
And then the last one, I think, is the increased services on a fee basis. And it's contract service fees for compliance monitoring of.
Wait, I don't
affordable-
see that. I see,
That's number 9, I'm sorry.
I don't see number, I don't have. Okay, I see. After the three positions and fringe benefits and current expenditures, then what are you talking about?
I'm thinking that's
And then it
It's
goes
the-
to debt service.
yeah, the 26,480 and the 34,980, the last one.
Yeah, that's just current expenses.
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
And then so that you were gonna ask in the previous, okay. And then
Correct.
the Waihole,
That's
Waihole is
ADC.
ADC
oh, that's different.
170.
But you guys still have to deal with that. I don't know.
No, no.
Yeah,
It's the Waihole water system.
The housing
This is
different from, this is the debt system.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Okay. Because what was the result of Waihole Waikani conversation when we had it with the governor's office? What ended up happening?
None.
You-
Asking questions about the. Please.
You sure she didn't tell you?
And I converse with him.
Good afternoon, Chair Nani Medeiros, Chief Housing Officer. In fairness, my
Infamous.
last,
The
sorry.
the infamous.
yeah. Trying to find a week, I stay out of the news. In fairness, I just had my most recent conversation with the farmers last night and this morning. So, and I'm speaking with them again this evening, but it's, I've been talking with the farmers, so some of the farmers, a small group of them. I've also been talking with a group of residential lot.
But are you able to share
I-
based on the what the AG might have said is if the different, because you had brought up the point, you weren't sure yet if we can do different rates for different people, different categories. That's something you had to check on, right?
I wasn't sure, but I think actually probably Denise and Chris Woodard from HHFDC can answer that because Chris has actually been doing the negotiations.
Because that we all agreed could be problematic, but we weren't sure.
Yes.
Because some leases already were signed with a certain amount at a certain rate.
I didn't know what this, I don't know the specifics of that, of what the rates were. if
No,
it
no, I'm
was
just
all
saying, that's just,
different or the
yeah,
same.
so
Yeah.
whatever rate that was.
Yeah.
So how do you reconcile different rates?
So, Senator, all of the lots are, so when the leases were signed back in 1998, the rents were set by formula. And the formula is based on the square footage, or acreage of the parcel.
Yeah, so is the formula even across the board or is it
It
different?
is even across the board for ag. And then there's a slightly different formula for residential lots. But in both cases, the formula is the same.
Okay,
So if you
But-
have a 5 acre ag lot, you pay X amount, and if you have a 10-acre ag lot, you pay twice that.
Okay, so the people who signed the lease already, that is based on a formula.
That is derived from the formula in the original leases. And
But we were talking about where people who they didn't sign the lease yet, but
Yep.
they want a different formula.
right,
And so
so
I know you were gonna try work out.
Yes, I'm not sure if I would say they want a different formula, but they didn't want to pay the initial offering and the increase.
Well, that
right,
means
a-
it
a
ends up being a
disagreement.
different formula though, because how else do you arrive to that an amount?
So yes, that's what I'm talking with some of the leaseholders about.
So how do you get around that then? Because if everyone signed the initial lease with a formula A for housing, formula B for ag, right?
correct, yep.
So now what you're saying is that some people signed the lease with the updated A,
Correct.
and not everybody wants the updated A. So now you have to negotiate a different formula for that.
Yeah, so I don't know what people who did agree, who signed new leases agreed to. I don't know if they all agreed to the initial offering from HHFDC or if they negotiated something lower or something in between.
So what I don't get is that how do we get around being inconsistent in the formula?
Yeah, so our belief is back in the day when the leases were signed, again, this is like late 90s. There was an agreement between the state and the community, recognizing that not all lots are the same. Not all lots can be valued similarly. And so there must have been some sort of agreement struck back in the day where, and actually I have record of it, where the parties agreed on average, an ag lot is worth this per acre. On average, a residential lot is worth this per square foot, and everyone agreed to it. So working off that concept, when we made our initial offers to the lessees, which were required to do under the leases, individual leases, we offered everyone the same formulaic rate, in keeping with practice that, what was implemented back in 1998. Because the reality is, to negotiate, we've got 93 separate contracts here. We got 93 long-term ground lessees. To negotiate each one, very painful.
Yeah, so
The problem,
is there a consistent formula for the two categories or not? Formula,
for the existing or for what we're
No,
asking?
no, for your amendments, I think the.
Okay,
Is
so
that sort of ad hoc? Is that what we're hearing? Or is that?
we're trying not to make it ad hoc. Reality is they are all separate leases. They're all individual contracts.
okay, so like at DHHL.
Yep.
It's dollar, no matter what the.
Well, that
size.
makes it easier. So, and we don't.
But you're going backwards, if it's centered, if I can rephrase it, if someone already signed for 6 times the increase, and then now we negotiate with someone and sign 4 times the increase, are we gonna go back with the ones that are signed 6 times and roll it back to 4 times?
Well, is that even legal though? Because isn't it a contract that was already signed? And why would the state go back?
So the lease rents that we offered for the 15-year renegotiated period represent something like a 50% discount to market rent. So our feeling was that we would offer that, and really not much room for negotiation. I wouldn't want to call it take it or leave it, because we're willing to be flexible on the structure of the rent. In other words, if we're asking for an average rent of a certain amount.
So I'm just trying to figure out what your position is at HHFDC, not necessarily your job position, but your position on this issue. And then the governor's office position on this issue and how we're reconciling the two. So your position is this is a formula for housing and a formula for ag. That's what you offered.
We made the initial offers based on a formula.
Okay, so what is the governor's office position on this? How are they differing from HHFTC's initial position?
We are in direct contact with some of the farmers who hold ag leases and some of the residents who hold residential lot leases. And their message to us is that the initial offering is unaffordable for them. So I have been talking with them, and then in turn I talk with Denise and Chris, and we dialogue about the differences in those two positions. The agency is looking to cover some of the operating costs to maintain the valley.
Because how much is it to subsidize the operations of that valley?
It's $1.3 million a year paid for from the dwelling aid revolving fund.
In total?
Yes, that's the operating subsidy. Yeah.
1.3
million per year.
And so you were trying to recapture how much of that?
We were trying to
500,000?
about half of it.
Oh,
Yeah.
800
How much are you actually capturing?
currently.
The total expenses are around 1.4 million.
And
We currently collect between lease rents and water service charges and some other fees, 300,000 a year. So, yeah, the rents are they're way below market. We've been subsidizing the operation for literally decades. And we've offered rents that are approximately 50% below market in an attempt to just, make up some of the difference.
So you're taking all the money we put into rental housing trust fund?
Dwelling in a revolving.
Oh, DERF. You're
DERF,
taking
yeah.
it from DERF
Yep.
to pay the difference.
Yeah.
So when we give you, let's say we give you 150 already, that's not 150.
A million of it gets sucked away. Yeah, unfortunately. So, we're trying to, we understand, it's a unique community.
But I'm just wondering if there's a way that you can still be consistent in fees, right? But then use another program similar to Section 8 to help. Instead of them eating it, why not another agency that actually provides housing assistance cover the cost?
Is that a question to me?
Yeah.
Sure. So I did have that conversation with the residents, the members I met with from the Waihole Waikane Community Association just last Thursday here.
Because it's of hardship, then there must be some other program that can help with hardship, right?
Yes, and I think that I can fairly say some of the lessees have a viewpoint that they consider it low-income housing. Okay, that is their perspective to a certain extent, that they're living in low-income housing. And therefore, there's also a certain expectation that whatever lease they paid be formulated that way. So unlike perhaps the formula that HHFDC actually used
But isn't that a board policy? The board
The
votes
rate?
on it, right? On
Yeah, so our board last June approved a policy relating to the lease rent renegotiations. And the goal of the negotiations is to meaningfully reduce the operating subsidy that we're providing, but not cover all of it, but to still offer below market rates. So that's what we've done.
So if they already have that policy, that means you got to go back to the board.
I'm not sure, but
I thought I asked you last time to go check on all that though.
I've been a little busy since Thursday. I'm sorry. But I want to answer your question. So the group, again, from the association that I met with, would like their rent to be calculated based on the sort of, how would I phrase it? The general understanding that affordability for rent is 30% of your income or lower, right?
No,
That
yeah.
standard is very specific when you look at government programs. We apply that to Section 8. It gets applied to public housing, right? You pay no more of that. It gets applied to
But you have
Ohana
to
zone
show income
funding.
and all
You
that
have to
stuff.
show income. There's all this, compliance stuff from a government program side of it. And I explained that to them. And then I also clarified that's not necessarily the programs HHFDC administers right now. They build,
Because
they
if that's the
develop.
case, you take that property out of their inventory and you give it to public housing to manage.
Quite possibly, but then you have the
And-
dilemma of the ag
Because
leases
these
and
guys are supposed to be
HPHA.
developing housing.
Yes, but HPHA is not an ag expert, so I think there needs to be some component that's going to be able to support the farmers. We've got two leaseholders, ag side and residential lot side. And I do think that that's something to explore.
I get that, but I don't know if what you described, I don't know if that matches an asset that belongs in that agency.
I agree. I agree.
Because if not, they have to treat it like an asset in their agency,
I agree.
which is
And-
where you're having the conflict of the formulation.
Because they have such different perspectives. I understand.
No, that's their mission
HHFBCs, yes,
by law.
yes,
And so how do you, and that's board policy.
yes.
So if you want to use a public housing approach to it, then you got to move it to public housing.
I'm not saying that I want to use a public housing approach. I'm saying that's what
No,
the
I'm talking
residents
for
are saying, and
conversation.
I'm trying
For
to
conversation.
find a balance between the two. I don't want anyone to be displaced. It's my
No,
job is
me
to
neither.
build
That's
more
why,
housing.
that's why I thought if there was another program that they could still do what they needed to by law
Mhm.
and by board policy. And then if you could identify another program to help subsidize that
I mean, I could definitely look at that. I think also,
as
you
one
know,
approach, just as one approach to
Yes.
deal with the issue.
yes, one of the, now I have to look, so income, we had, one of the other requests in this year is, increasing rental subsidy program up to 13 million, I believe, and I think that's under HPHA. Provides shallow subsidies up to $500, to people earning, I think, up to 80% AMI, but because they've only gotten like $1 million a year for the last, I don't know, 15 years or something, they only help people that are mostly around 32% AMI and below, which could very well be a fair amount of the leaseholders in Waihole. I don't know that for sure
Okay,
because I
but
haven't
you're
seen
gonna-
everybody's income, but we can look at it. And if the legislature is supportive of increasing that existing program within HPHA, that is a way that could help.
Okay, why don't you
them.
gather all that information and then we can reconcile it to see
Okay,
which agency actually matches that type of program.
okay.
Because if not, you're putting a round peg in or, you know,
So just so that I'm clear then, some kind of rental subsidy program to help support,
that's one option. If that way they could still do what they need to do
Right.
and be consistent.
and they're doing the
And
lease
they're
thing.
not trying to
Okay.
create with different leases for different people, for different, they have the formula.
Okay.
And then on the individual basis, they can apply for the subsidy depending on who needs it, like you're
Yes.
saying, and then that could help. Or you take that asset out of their inventory and you put it to another agency that actually has that type of philosophy.
Mhm. Mhm.
Chair,
Understand.
could I make a small clarification? These are leasehold ground leases, so the homes are not ours either. So it's not a rental project for us.
Yes.
They're owned, right?
They have a leasehold interest in the property.
Yeah, but this is your only asset that has that does this, right?
We have other assets that are leasehold, mostly Wai'i in the Uluwaihi subdivision.
And you're doing all the you do like the 1.3
No,
million.
so it's,
Yes, that's what
yeah,
I'm
we don't
talking about.
lose gobs of money out in those.
Yeah, so the other ones is strictly leases. This one,
Yes, we
it's the
have
leases, you're running the water
water,
system, you're doing the
roads,
roads.
yeah. There's the farming component.
But the point I think he's trying to make, Chair, just for awareness is you've got these other leases that you're managing too. So whatever we do to one formula, it might have impact on.
No,
these
that's
other
why,
leases.
yeah, I
Yeah,
know, I
that-
get
that
it.
just-
So that's why if you kept the formula the same and then if governor's office identified another program to help subsidize, then you're not trying to mess with the formula too much.
I'll look at that.
Because I feel like that's more difficult. And that's where I think it's kind of tricky, especially the legal component. Or, you know, if you see fit, you find another agency that can just operate, maintain and lease it.
Mhm. Okay. Will do.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you could just lease the whole thing to a nonprofit to manage.
I've talked with the leaseholders about that option. Yeah.
Are you indifferent or you want to keep the asset?
So we've come to over the years accept that it's our asset.
Yeah,
And
but are you
so
indifferent if the governor's office determines, hey, you know what? this might be a better fit for this agency.
We'd be open to that.
Okay,
Thank you.
well, that's good for you then. So,
But you've had resistance from the other appropriate agencies in the past, though, right? Because I know that in the past, I think there were discussions with DOA, the LNR and others. Because simply you guys aren't really, you guys don't do water systems, you don't really do this type of project, right? But
Yes.
those other agencies weren't that interested in taking over. right?
The original agreement was for DLNR to take it. Back in the day, they reneged on that.
And
We
rightly
approached,
so.
yeah, well,
yeah, that was
no
him.
comment. The Department of Agriculture, ADC, HCDA, DHHL. Running out of acronyms.
So this was during Karamatsumoto.
There's
Or
actually
maybe
an
because they took,
agreement.
well, they took Kahana. Dylan.
They learned from Kahana.
And so they were like, okay, we got,
There are notes in my file, our files about that.
okay, any other questions? If not, we'll move on.
Thank you, Chair.
One, BED 170.
170.
Oh, whoever's 170. No, I mean, this is one department. We're going by this. But then people might want to stick around because the individual questions have not been asked, only the budget. And we still got to go over CIP.
Yes, sir. No, everybody's available as to my understanding, but so,
Is it okay if they all come and just sit or you want?
They can, it's up to them.
thank you. Okay, so,
Now stadium, no,
No,
170.
ADC.
Oh, ADC.
right, we're asking for debt service for the Waihole water system in 2001. ADC received a loan of 8.5 million for the Waihole water system project. There is $4,047,020 of principal remaining. ADC is requesting this amount to retire this debt service. Doing so will save the state nearly 800,000 in costs and help manage the cost of water to the farmers. We also have James Nakatani and Mark Takemoto with ADC here. Second item is a accountant 5 position and requesting general funds to provide full year funding for an accounting 5 position. The accountant position was approved for fiscal year
Yeah,
23.
That was in the bill.
Thank you.
Was
Yes,
that in the bill? This was in the bill, right?
was it in the bill?
Yeah, the bill that passed last year that moved ADC to DBED, the accountant 5 was, yeah. So this is,
Yes, it was.
this
It's
is
part of the
Greg
bill.
putting in the base because it's in the
Right.
bill.
It
Yes,
was a
please.
position, but no funds were attached to it.
Okay. You know, I just want you to explain though real quickly to the committee that you have to use some of your funds to pay, is it DHL and OHA? Or is it just OHA?
Both. No.
Oh, both.
Both.
Okay, can you just explain that?
Okay, so,
That part of your budget actually gets taken out to pay for OHA
right,
and,
so in the case of Kakaako, we pay 30% to DHL. and
Which is how
20%
much?
to OHA. So there's 50% of whatever revenues we collect in Kakaako that we pay. Now, in Sugarlands, we pay another 30% to OHA. And for any lands that we have in Sugarland, regardless of who owned it, we pay 30%
Okay.
of the revenues we collect.
so annually, how much of the dollar amount, not the percentage? How much goes to OHA and how much goes to
Oh,
DHL?
I can't give you that information. I
yeah,
don't
if
really
you can
have it,
get
but, yeah, every year we can get that amount, yeah. So,
Because I don't think people realize,
also that applies to all of Sugarlands and, also in Kalepa. So Kauai, we pay a lot to, those two organizations, yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
so a significant, just so that everybody knows, a significant amount of their budget goes to pay for DHL things and Office of Foreign Affairs.
Jimmy, you guys filled already the accounting position.
So
Is that accounting position already filled?
the
for
accountant
ADC?
position,
The one, yeah, this one.
Yeah,
the accountant 5?
Yeah.
That was in the bill last year to help us resolve some of our accounting issues that we had throughout the audit. And then, there's a, from last year's, bill, 2473, I believe it was, that, they give us an accountant to make sure that we,
No, but the position, you
everything
guys
whole.
filled it already.
So,
You filled the position already.
no, and that's why we're asking for the funding for the accountant 5.
He's saying the bill created the position, but didn't.
And also the accountant 4, we asked for 30,000, right? And because that was only half, and that position is being recruited right now.
Okay, that's the one I'm looking at. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Moving on to Stadium Authority, as for the last one, our BED 188. Request to increase the Stadium Development Special Fund, the ceiling to accommodate the 49.5 million general fund deposit pursuant to proviso 17.3 of Act 248 SLH 2022. Request will allow the Stadium Authority to deposit, allot, and expend the 49.5 million in general funds appropriated by such act, and by proviso authorize the deposit of the 49.5 into the Stadium Development Special Fund. In doing so, will provide the stadium with the best possible position with the amount of flexibility and needs and responsiveness to construct a new stadium by whichever underwriting option is chosen. This request is being submitted in conjunction with the omnibus budget finances, the omnibus bill that extends the lapse date to 6/30/2024. The second is a request for 0.5 budgeted scoreboard supervisor for a,
Wait, but do you know the history of the 49.5?
it was explained to me by Ryan Andrews, but he's also here.
No, asking if you know the history.
Explained to me, yes, that the 49.5 million is to pay the availability funds once the
No, but-
project is, oh, sorry.
No, but don't you want to explain that you already have the 49.5 from general fund,
Yes.
but you need the ceiling increase, I guess, in special funds so you can spend the general fund that we gave the stadium.
Yes, that is correct. Thank you. It is like as
So you already have the 49.5. It's not like you're asking for 49.5.
correct. It's just extending increase in ceiling of the Stadium Development Special Fund. Yes. Sorry, it is for the 49.5 general fund that is provided in Act 248 Session Laws 2022.
Good afternoon, Chair Ryan Andrews, Aloha Stadium. So during the October-November biennium budget preparation, the administration determined they would defer action on the 49.5 and include it in their omnibus bill for this year. So the money is not in our fund yet. So we are seeking though, well, they're going to be submitting a bill to put it in the fund and also defer the lapse date from June 30, 23 to June 30, 2024.
Okay. But that was the initial amount was in last year's budget.
That is correct. So as you stated, we are asking for a ceiling increase in the Stadium Development Special Fund so we can use that money once it is deposited in the account.
Okay, so how does I don't know if you guys have the information yet on the stadium in regards to the purpose of the 49.5. Because my understanding was we would put the 350 in for CIP, right? For, I guess now it's the proviso says only construction of the stadium. But then when you do a public-private partnership, instead of coming back to the ledge for payments, you're gonna take it from the, what is acuity fund? Was it?
Like a liquidity fund. We would use this money in the initial years while we're trying to generate more revenue from the real estate.
So you're not coming
development.
back to
That
us,
is-
you're
that is
taking it
correct.
here.
Correct.
And that's still the plan?
That is still the plan.
Okay. I think people have questions, but once you open Pandora's box, you can't really close it.
Thank you, Chair. So the last one is to request the beginning of the staffing required to plan, implement, and oversee the entire contracting process for the new stadium facility and surrounding development. So that's that one stadium contracts director position. Authority's operational master plan is to have a contracts director on staff with a legal background to oversee the entire contract development and procurement process. And so
how much did the stadium make off of the auctions?
Well, we're still in the auctions. We have auctions going on for the rest of the year. So we've done one round And I don't have the numbers for the first round, but we'll be doing auctions throughout.
So I don't know if
2023.
everybody knows, stadium is auctioning off seats, signs, anything that they have there before they demolish it.
Correct.
I, I can't afford it. What? I gotta go look. I gotta go look. Oh, yeah, yeah. Did you guys go and look at Snapdragon yet?
I've been to Snapdragon.
Okay, because a couple of us went and we saw that they took some of the more significant memorabilia and pieces of the stadium, though, and they incorporated it into Snapdragon. Are you doing that too?
We are. We're going to be saving most of the memorabilia for a museum.
Okay,
In
but
the
they even
stadium.
put it in as a part of the design. I don't, they didn't even have a museum, but it was like a part of the design.
Correct. They put it where people could see it, the public can see it.
The
We'll-
big
we,
coin,
we will be doing the same
they
thing.
had the big coin of the, I guess, the legislator who initially funded the first stadium. And then they had the lights that made it, they made it into an art piece.
And they had seats, I know as well.
So-
Snapdragon is a nice model that we've looked at and we
Oh, that's
definitely,
like a, that matches what we should be doing.
yeah, I agree.
So if you're keeping all the good stuff, what is there left of value to buy?
You'd be surprised, like the next auction is going to have a lot of kitchen items that
Oh.
were used in the concessions. We've sold golf carts. It's not all memorabilia. Most of it's not memorabilia. Most of it's
Well, they have
desks.
50,000 seats.
We've got seats.
You can get one of each color.
Different colors as well, sir.
Thank you.
I don't know. That's all stuff that. Yeah, did you go to the Innovation Center at Snapdragon?
I did not.
Oh,
It was not, when I went there, it wasn't even open.
oh, it should have been.
Yeah.
It's still there. So the Innovation Center, when they were constructing the stadium.
Oh,
which
no,
is-
I know. Yes. Okay. That innovation center I did
Yeah.
see. Yes.
So it's all simulated. You can sit down
Yep.
and then, I
See your
guess-
seat.
yeah, you can
point.
see what it
Yeah.
looks like if you buy the seat.
Yeah. So we would be doing something similar with like suite sales and club seat sales, so people can purchase ahead of time.
But they had the whole, that part looked almost like a museum with the simulated experience so that it got people excited to buy.
Yep. Correct.
You're gonna do that too?
We definitely will either do that or we're also considering using VR as a cheaper model, cheaper way to do it.
Well, the Kmart, isn't that for sale?
You know, it's funny, the Kmart is being used right now by, I believe, Home Depot, but we are also looking at that for actually future office spaces. That could
Because
also be a
that-
sales center, like you
Well,
said.
that's where probably you would have the ideal
Yeah.
innovation center.
Okay, I'll keep that in mind.
Okay, that's all. Okay,
you,
why don't we
Chair.
go to the other table?
Okay, so the first one on the list is PED 107 Foreign Trade Zone. David Sickink is here, and that's a CIP for the Hilo Tropical Ag Tech Facility to develop and germinate tropical ag tech hub.
That's
and
our
dem-
table 15, right? The first one.
Yes, sir. It's a round two
No.
request.
Because I don't think we did table round one first.
Round one, sorry. I went to round.
It's only 3 items, so it should be.
Round one.
No, not on the CIP. We only did round one on the operating.
So what are we doing now?
Now it goes to table 15. Do we have the round two CIP? Is it next?
Right here.
Oh,
Okay, first one is
well, it's this, the handwritten. Okay, well, your round one should be fast.
yeah, HCDA BD 150,
Who is that?
HCDA.
Oh, is this a continuation from the funding last year?
Yes, Chair.
Yeah.
Yes, the first round is the 12.125 that was vetoed for the budget. It ended up being in ARPA money. We tried to get it reapplied for it to BNF, but we didn't get it back.
Okay, so at least the EG guys tried to put it back in because you couldn't use the ARPA. funds.
Correct.
Yeah, okay. Okay.
Next two chair are Agribusiness Development Corporation. And you just saw Jimmy here. And so it's BED 170, the AHA Hoaka Reservoir Improvements on Kauai, and then the Galbraith
You
Agricultural.
gotta take Hawaiian lessons.
Sorry, I know it's Hoaka. And because it on my right is with A was sorry.
Okay, that's 1.1 million.
Yes. Provide necessary improvements to reservoir embankments. And when the project is completed, the event of a catastrophic system failure and potential
And
impacts
then
of the flood.
500,000 for land improvements.
Yes, sir. Galbraith Agricultural. Okay. Okay, moving to round two. Is that
Yeah.
okay, sir?
Yeah.
Okay, BED 107. Sorry, I started with that earlier. That's the Tropical Ag Tech Facility. And it's to develop and germinate a tropical ag tech hub and demonstration center in an effort to help local farmers on Hawaii Island and statewide modernize through transformative technologies, which will enable higher profitability and food security. The objectives of the project are to develop and demonstrate tropical agriculture and food technologies that can improve the profitability of small farms in Hawaii and to export goods and intellectual property from the state. Project allows for sharing of equipment and resources, creates a place for agriculture, food, and other technology research, development, and demonstrations, and serves as a catalyst for innovation, workforce training, entrepreneurship, and higher wages. Concept design, cost estimate, and environmental assessments have already been completed. FDZ has an executive order for the property. Request is for 7.5 million, which is a breakdown of 4.7 million in warehouse facility construction, 2.8 million for the build out of the remaining planned space. And as I mentioned, David Sicking, our director for Foreign Trade Zone, is here as well to answer specific questions.
The property is already identified.
Yes, it is.
Thank you.
Oh, this
Thanks,
is
sir.
on you kept. I think she informed us, but you can go ahead.
Yes, Chair. Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chairs, members of the committee. The property's already been identified. We've been in conversation with HTDC for years. And the property was identified several years ago as a place for an innovation center. And it is by executive order to the Foreign Trade Zone.
And then the 2.5.
So
Yeah, Foreign Trade Zone 9,
Is that
Pier
to-
2 facility.
Is that for that building?
Electrical.
No, it's for the-
electrical.
Oh,
That's-
this
that's
is for
our-
this.
That's our
Oh,
Pier 2 facility. Yes.
oh, that's for your one now.
FTZ 9 at Pier 2.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, so that the common electrical system, the building was constructed in 1954. The electrical system then was a Delta system, which is a 488 volt, 3-phase ungrounded neutral system. Due to this, the FDZ currently has 3 electrical meters which service different parts of the facility. By upgrading the electrical system to a modern WAE system, the Foreign Trade Zone can consolidate the 3 meters down to 1, remove the potentially hazardous delta distribution faults. This will allow the FDZ to also leverage and expand its existing 300 kilowatt photovoltaic system to better match the facility's daily energy demand and implement a battery system to extend the use of the PV generated energy. This will also allow for optimizing.
Okay, I think we got it.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, what is the clean energy 50 million?
Okay, thank you. I turn my page, excuse me. We have Gwen Yamamoto Lau here. It's the executive director, the Hawaii Green Infrastructure Authority. It is a $50 million request pursuant to section 196-65.5 HRS. And so Act 107 Session Laws 2021
Okay,
to
so
infuse.
Gwen, if it's a revolving fund, why you need the extra 50? Because I thought people were supposed to pay back.
No, so currently, good afternoon, Gwen Yamamoto Lau, Hawaii Green Infrastructure Authority. Currently, our funds are not revolving. So when we make a loan and get repaid, all repayments, principal and interest gets paid back to the PUC. So this would create a real revolving fund where the principal is repaid.
So how much
and,
have you been giving to the PUC?
so far, I think we transferred over $12 million to the PUC,
So once this is established, then you won't have to do that?
not with these funds.
Okay, and then your department's budget is what? Your division's budget is how much?
Our overhead, 1.2 million roughly.
And that's with all what?
So we have 5 staff.
How much of that is A5?
It's all special funds.
It's all special.
Yes.
Yes. So you could expand, once you get this, you can expand the program.
Yes.
Question, Chair.
Senator Inouye?
Are we still, you still have the income coming in from the ratepayers?
No, so yes,
The
to pay the
HECO
bond,
ratepayers,
right, right.
the dollar, what, so many
Dollar
cents,
25
dollars,
cents, on the
but that's
residential.
still
It,
coming in.
it comes in and it's all to repay the bond that was issued to capitalize the loan, yes.
And what did we give PUC? Are they taking monies out of that funds too?
No, so those are strict, the green infrastructure fee is strictly to repay the bond. What we are giving the PUC is when we make a loan and every repayment we get, we then transfer to the PUC annually.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. You know how many people you helped already?
We have over 500 residential loans and we have commercial loans too. So on the commercial loans, it includes nonprofits. It also includes multifamily. So I think we've assisted over 1,100 rental units along with other nonprofits and small businesses.
I thought at one point they were trying to use your funds for DOE.
We did. So we provided a loan to DOE that is being repaid.
But currently it goes to PUC. It just gets to you and PUC.
No, so for the state funds, what we did in 2018 is we took the 50 million that initially went to the PUC and we created a state revolving fund. So it only can be used for state energy efficiency. The principal gets, can be reinvested and reloaned. The interest goes to the PUC.
So Gwen, your program would also be able to offer up, now that we're dealing with all these cesspools and stuff, would that program also offer up to help or?
Not these funds. We have been in conversation with the Department of Health to see if we can help them financing cesspools with funds that they have through the federal government.
Okay, thank you.
With existing staff, you're gonna do the cesspools.
No, we would need different staff for this, more, add staff for the cesspools. But that's not for this.
No, but that's not, because that wasn't even the operating request though.
Yeah, no. So that's for next year's legislature. We've been in discussion with them.
Oh, okay. Oh, I see. So once you do this, then the new positions can come out of the revolving fund.
Yes, yeah.
How many people?
I'm not putting in for any now. I want to see if we can.
No,
get
but how
the
many
funds.
people do you think next year?
Maybe 2, 1 or 2. I want to make sure that we can be sustainable and pay for overhead with
Yeah,
the
so
interest that we earn.
You're creating your own revenue and then you're adding this, a real limited amount of staff that you can pay for out of your revolving fund
Yes.
versus just asking for more general fund. Thank you.
Thank you, Gwen.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair. Next on the list I have is the First Responder Tech Campus as High Tech Development Corporation. We have Len Higashi. He might have had to run. Oh, there's Len. Perfect. Sorry, he has a CRP construction funds for infrastructure at the First Responders Tech Campus at Mililani Tech Park Phase 2. First Responders Tech Campus will locate critical facilities in a strategic, safe site out of the inundation zone, provide jobs in central Oahu. The funding requested is for groundwork, site work, and construction of the first segment of road to support the campus. 50 million, the breakdown is 48 million construction, 1 million in planning, 1 million design. And so Lenigashi, it's available for questions about details.
Aloha, available for any questions. We're at the final EIS stage and then about to go into permitting. So we anticipate being ready for this funding and construction in this upcoming fiscal year.
So how many state agencies and how many federal?
Total in the project?
Yeah, okay, how
Well,
many?
total there's like 28, but teed up right now, we're looking at trying to move forward with the first state agency that is ready to move today.
Okay, so how many federal? Because I thought FBI, sheriffs, and Homeland Security we're all looking at possible a partnership.
They're in discussions, part of the planning process, but each of these agencies has to secure funding, which is a longer term process. So,
but I thought it's difficult for them to have a real agreement with the state unless they actually saw infrastructure, because if they could only, like the FBI, they said they could do the shooting range, but they can't do the infrastructure. So
we're trying to build momentum for the project in that way. That's why we're trying to get started.
So once you get the infrastructure, then we can get the commitment from the federal agencies.
Then it will make it easier for them, to make their commitments and easier for them to secure their funding from their sources.
And how many county agencies?
I'm sorry, I didn't bring that in front of me.
I mean, it's at least police, fire, ambulance.
There's quite a few. I mean,
civil defense.
This is county, federal, state. We started with the state because that is close to us. But the target and the cooperation has been federal and county level. Again, it's got to fit into for the county, it's got to fit into the county's budget. For the feds, it got to fit into the Fed budget. There's some planning that's involved. But again, this is the first segment of road to get us there.
Does this include lot 17?
No, it does not.
Not yet. Did we not purchase that lot?
No, well.
Did not?
We did not purchase that lot. That funding never got released.
No, the governor vetoed, right?
Correct. Last session.
So we had the money and then he vetoed it.
Okay, what about the new agency that we're looking at, the law enforcement agency?
So they would be in this lot. The new law enforcement agency would probably participate.
Have you guys reached out?
It's
DLE, they're looking at a private lease right now, somewhere in this area, but they're looking forward to moving and establishing in the first responders. They've been briefly mentioning that to us.
So the sooner we can get the infrastructure,
Correct.
then they can actually come in for their building versus leasing.
Right. Correct.
Thank you. So Lynn, you guys get federal funding, yeah?
We have federal funding for a lot of our programs. Not this one in particular, but we're working on it.
Yeah.
So we're in conversations with Department of Transportation. We're
Senator Schott's office.
Senator Schott's office. So Senator Schott's office, there was some appropriation for design for Haima for planning. So again, all of the projects that we work on, we try to leverage the federal funding wherever we can. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Office of Planning Sustainable Development, BED 144, $2 million in fiscal year 24 and fiscal year 25, 2 million for state or transit oriented development planning. And the TOD project master plan and site plans, TOD public infrastructure needs and cost assessments, TOD project and infrastructure environmental review document and preparation, TOD project feasibility and cost studies, and project coordination facilitation. Scott Glenn is here to provide answer any questions as well.
So none of this is construction then.
No, sir.
So the previous ask on positions and contracts, how does that interact with the 2 million?
It would be helping to facilitate the distribution of these funds, and the assistance to the counties and other state agencies.
Oh, okay. So if you get these funds, then you need those positions to manage these funds.
We have been able to use the funds for the last 6 years of receiving them. And so without the positions, we would still be able to execute the funds. It's a matter of bandwidth and effectiveness. The CIP would be the most important.
So why not just come in straight? Why wouldn't we just do CIP versus just planning using CIP?
CIP for the planning versus
No,
the positions?
like actually, if we know we want to do the West Oahu Center, that wherever there's not infrastructure, why wouldn't we just start plan, design, construction for that TOD versus doing it 2 million statewide? And
That certainly that's a viable strategy. And this is another way to help with identifying. We have over 70 potential projects across the state identified that could use the assistance for helping to kickstart the project. If there's individual projects.
But how does this 2 million kickstart those projects?
It helps with the master planning, the environmental review, the permitting, the soft costs that lead to it.
Yeah, but so this, if it's like this, then it doesn't really get you anything though. It's just going to be another planning document versus if we were to identify the specific TOD we want, then we should put plan, design, construction.
Yes,
and then
sir.
that means it's going to be twice the planning.
This helps with the portions that are not necessarily covered, or if a project is underway and we realize that adjustments need to be made, especially to achieve other departments' goals or state goals connected in that same area, then these funds can help cover that gap.
Senator Kidani.
So with the development of the rail, there are places where the rail passes through state properties, particularly UH West Oahu, Honolulu Community College. Do any of these monies plan for the bridge that gets them to the campus? For instance, for West Oahu, it's on the opposite side of the road. It's a 5 or 6 lane roadway at that point.
I'm not sure that it specifically plans for the bridge. UH West Oahu has been a recipient of the CIP planning grants. I can double check that.
CIP planning, but.
Yes.
Okay. So there is a plan.
It's for lands for urban design out in the UH West Oahu area and integrating with the larger TOD area. I don't know if it specifically includes the bridge.
Specifically asking, has to do with transit-oriented development. The rail starts there.
Yes.
But I don't see any plans to get the people from the campus to the rail across that 6 lane roadway. That's what I'm asking. Originally, it was supposed to be on the side of the campus, but I'm not going to say the state dragged their feet, so they went on the side where the city had the property. But anyway,
But didn't the city already do TOD plans for each TOD? I mean, they went out to the communities.
Yes.
So how is that duplicative of this?
This is I would say these are more project specific, and then helping in particular the individual agencies coming and asking for assistance on their projects.
Oh, so you have 75 projects. How specific we're gonna get of the 75 to start something hard?
That's what I need to check.
Chairs, if I may. So actually Scott and I had a discussion to your points right before we walked in. He was showing me how the 2 million was spent year over year on previous projects. So this is awarded by the TLD Council, which OPSD administrators chair of. So what we need to go back and ask is, basically what projects are we funding? So if it's for housing, for example, like HPHA, how many units by what year? And then working backwards from that, 3 years before that, we do need to put infrastructure in, which we don't know the cost yet. So 2 years before that, which is 24, 25, this 2 million would help fund the master planning, the EIS and the permitting to determine the infrastructure cost. Then in 2 years, we can hit that next benchmark. And then 5 years from now, we'll be able to go back to HPHA and say infrastructure is then go and ask for infrastructure funds for housing. So those questions asked by Senator Gidani, those are the exact same questions we're just asking each other on this 2 million for this fiscal year, next fiscal year.
But again, I think in prior authorizations, money was provided for this that I think got sent out to all the different counties, and some of the counties actually have done the planning work and are ready to go. So I guess the question from the members is there any hard infrastructure that can be funded instead of more planning? I can understand if the grants are going to help them with 343 documents and the like, but it seems kind of open-ended on what you guys are describing right now. That it could just be, if it's just more planning, I think the members are a little bit leery because there's been a couple of rounds of the TOD planning money.
You're absolutely correct. We were talking about, we got to look at what's shovel ready and move to shovel ready. So tying in the other question about the infrastructure along the rail, could we just, I can't speak for it yet, but focus on just one project along the rail route instead of asking for more plans if we don't know when we're going to be shovel ready.
So is this line item going to change to something more project specific?
If I can confer with the director and deputy, we can come back with that.
Okay, now,
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Now has 5. The first is a portable water well on the island of Hawaii. Potable, not portable, excuse me. Brought my reading glasses, but portable water well. That's a good point. Hey, those are popular. No, sorry. Potable water well on the island of Hawaii. Greg Barber is here with the NELHA. Potable water is a constraint for future development at the Hawaii Ocean Science and Technology Park and affordable housing in HHFDC's Kamakana villages. The water and development costs will be shared equally between NELHA and HHFDC. This request is only for NELHA's portion of the development costs, includes funds to complete the exploration phase, including drilling, casing, testing of the exploratory well. All environmental studies and design have been completed. The request is for the $5 million in GEO bonds in fiscal year 24.
You said this is only NELHA's portion. So is this dependent on getting matching funds from somebody else then?
Great.
But 2 agencies are using it?
Yes. 50-50 HHFDC and NELHA. So
they pay half?
They'll pay half and we'll pay half.
But they're taking out of what, DERF?
They will. We're initially paying for our portion. The total development cost will probably be.
Is that the Ota well?
Yes, it is.
Oh, same.
You're still on the exploratory well phase then, or?
Yeah, we're attempting to get a permit to drill the exploratory well.
That's the water well permit from Water Commission?
Yes, sir.
Which should be ministerial, but when did you apply and what's the status of that?
We applied in 2018 and currently it's in contested case hearing, pending contested case hearing, and also reconsideration. We have 2 requests in HHFDC and NELHA.
The contested case is not done yet, or has it started, or
Has not started.
What?
Has not started.
You applied in 2018. At some point, a contested case was requested, and at this point, the contested case is not started yet?
Yeah, they issued a permit to us approximately 6 months ago. And we disagreed with the conditions that were special conditions that were placed on the permit. We asked for reconsideration And then we applied for a contested case hearing to preserve our options while we in discussions with the special conditions. We hope to make progress over the next 6 months and not have to go to the contested case hearing, which could take many years.
Yeah, but then that's why kind of hard. You're asking for the 5 million now, but what if it gets caught up in this?
I understand. But if we don't ask for the money now and we resolve the issue, it even delays it further. You have to remember that you appropriated these funds to us in 2016. We've been working as hard as we can to get this well. It takes a long time, and once the exploratory well is done, then we have to drill the production well, and it's holding up Kamakana villages and it's holding up Nelha. I believe the airport also needs water as well. It's a significant issue in West Hawaii.
How onerous were the special conditions? I mean, I'm kind of curious if 6 months is worth it, or should we just go forward?
Discussions with Denise and myself, they were unprecedented. They've never applied these kind of conditions on a exploratory well permit before. We were required to pay a portion of the Department of Forestry's, Division of Forestry's watershed management cost in perpetuity. We were required to do offshore sampling for a 2-mile stretch of the coastline in perpetuity. And then those costs.
Conditions placed by the commission or by commission staff?
By the commission. It was in our well drilling permit that they provided to us.
Well drilling permit had to be approved by the commission?
That was the position of DLNR at that time.
But it didn't have to be, right?
That's my understanding. This is the first time it had ever gone to the commission. In the past, it has been a ministerial decision. We put a lot of work into this, and
No, I get it. I just hope that you guys can actually get through the process.
well, I must admit, a breath of fresh air. Had 3 or 4 discussions with Director Sada Yasu, and we've had a lot of good discussions, and I think I'm encouraged by the feedback I've gotten from him. So
I'm encouraged too, but from the
Yeah.
presentation so far.
thank you.
So
No, that's
is
the
there-
truth. It's the truth. We spent a lot of time on this.
Are you working with the Attorney General's office to try and get this reversed, or anything else that can be done legally?
Not at this time. It's understanding the only option. While we've talked extensively with the Attorney General's office, and the contested case hearing is our only option. Unless they reconsider.
They meaning DLNR?
The
Or the
Water
water.
Resource Commission reconsiders and provides some change in the conditions.
But the so there's gonna be affordable housing component, right?
Absolutely.
So doesn't the governor's emergency proclamation, does it help anything with this?
I don't know. Is Denise?
Before you answer that one, Denise, can you just remind me, how many units are we talking about at Kamakana Village?
Potential of up to 1,600 units.
Wow.
Okay.
Would be the end of the decade.
Well, I
Did
mean, I
not
don't know
need-
if you can retroactively apply this
Did
though,
not-
in the order.
Did the housing advisor, does she know if this is if this qualifies under the? emergency
I can
clause?
follow up her and check. I don't know if she's still outside.
Because if it's eminent because of the proclamation, then you know. There's justification for that amount.
I will text her.
I don't want to speak on behalf of the chief housing officer, but my understanding is the first emergency proclamation applies to more the homeless.
Yeah. What about
Than
the
just the
other?
affordable housing. So we're waiting to see what's in the next proclamation to see if it has any implications. I'm not sure at this point.
Yeah, that's a. Senator Kanuha.
Yes, Chair. So $10 million just for the exploratory well, right?
Half. Yeah.
Or is it for the whole cost?
No, the 5 million is for the full cost of the exploratory well.
How much will it cost to put the actual well in? If you do find that water?
Yes, Senator, our estimate at this time is that it will take an additional $10 million for the production well. The total cost will be $15 million. That's in discussion with other developers in West Hawaii, as well as the County Department of Water Resource. Those are the current estimates.
And is that I don't even know if you know that it's a standard amount of money for the exploratory and production. Okay, that's right.
That's pretty standard.
Okay, but you said there's cost sharing, right? So your request is 5 million, and then in the DERF Excel sheet, it shows a 2. Yeah. So where are you getting the rest from?
For the production well, we would have to come back in the future and ask.
So HHFTC is gonna pay 2, and you're gonna pay 5 for the initial phase.
So the question is, because we're paying half, shouldn't we pay 5 too? Is the question. So my
Unless
understanding.
there's somebody else that's also benefiting, that's paying the 3.
Yeah, let me clarify this. So when we arranged this agreement 4 years ago with HHFTC, they had one of the last well sites in West Hawaii, and they only needed 1.5 wells, and they had 2 sites. So they graciously agreed to work with us, and we would drill this well together. At the end of the day, whatever the total cost is, we would each end up paying 50%. But right now, we would pay the first $5 million.
Okay, so in subsequent phases, they may be more than you.
Both of our boards have agreed to this memorandum.
But I guess in future phases, their allocation may be larger than yours, but at the end, when it's all done, it's gonna be 50-50?
That's exactly correct.
Now, eventually this would be transferred to the county or not?
Yes, sir. That's current practice is that once you drill the well, make it a production well, hook it into the county system, then you give that asset to the county, and they're responsible for delivering water to the community.
Right, so any pumping costs and the like would be the county's then, right?
That's correct.
They're getting it for free though.
They are.
But they'll be maintaining and serving the new community. But I don't know, it was your constituency.
A bunch of them already know.
Well, anyway, but you need to resolve the legal issues with the water commission or just.
Or the emergency proc, I'm not sure what it's.
Any idea what the watershed in perpetuity number is? I mean, when DOFA is asked, when that condition's set there, is there a number?
Yes, they provided a number for that watershed management. They have a watershed management plan with a budget, and we are the way they allocated it, they did allocate it fairly, that a portion of the water reserves in that area, in that aquifer, they estimated the amount of water that we would withdraw. And then they came up with our share of the total cost of protecting that aquifer. And it was $11,000 per year for the first 5 years. And then it would be reevaluated every 5 years forever.
But in perpetuity.
Yeah. And the offshore sampling is a very difficult one to estimate. Our estimate is perhaps as much as $50,000 a year. But
Was that in perpetuity too? Or
yes, it was. But we have not negotiated the exact requirements for sampling with them. And that was a requirement after we got the permit. It is unprecedented, but we want to work with them. But it's been hard, you know.
Why wouldn't you ask for A funds for the 5 million or even the 2 million versus C funds? Because if you're not sure, if you're gonna take up space in the bonds with the bonds, versus if it lapses, it just comes back to general fund.
Yes. We could do that. I didn't think of that, to be honest with you. But the original 2.5 million that you appropriated for this project, we did just lapse that. We spent 250,000 on the environmental assessment and the planning and the design and the permitting. And so we just lapsed 2.25 million of the original appropriation.
So would that be the same for HHFDC? If it went to A funds versus it's still A funds, I guess, but if we did a separate line item A funds for the 2 million, does it matter?
That could work.
But what gives you more flexibility?
The A funds.
The A funds, right?
Correct.
Thank you. Okay, 5 roads.
Thank you, sir. Construction of 5 new roads, island of Hawaii. The total scope of this project includes the construction of 5 roads. Is a prerequisite for future new land development at Host Park. 3 of the 5 roads have been designed and are shovel ready.
Did you guys have any conversation with DOT?
Airports?
No. It's Sniffin, just to see if they could assist with that project at all.
No.
I thought there might be some infrastructure grant money.
We can follow up with Dr. Sniffin. Thank you.
Okay, EIS.
Okay, offshore research corridor EIS, island of Hawaii. Waters offshore of the host park, offering an ideal location for testing innovative conservation, energy, offshore aquaculture, or ocean monitoring concepts. These funds are needed to complete an EIS for an offshore research corridor.
It's interesting. Okay, what is the expansion?
Acute Research Campus Extension, Island of Hawaii. This project includes expansion of the existing 6-acre research campus by an additional 4 acres with a new 20,000 square foot building and outdoor research space. The current research campus is at 100% occupancy, and this expansion will provide space for the planned ocean technology and ocean conservation incubators and accelerators.
Okay, so I think when we had the WAM site visit, the only concern I have about expanding is we have no pipeline. So Kealakehi or Kona Waina, if they have a OTEC academy, so that as we build and hopefully create opportunities for jobs, it's our local guys that are going to be able to have been trained to go in these jobs. If not, we build all of this and then we got lots of mainland companies or other companies moving here. And then our guys are only like the workers versus the actual innovators and entrepreneurs. So I don't know how, going back to your cluster with your chart, if that can be tied in.
Yeah.
And Palama Nui's right there. I don't know if they have an OTEC, even CTE certificate.
Yeah. Senator, when you were there visiting last time, you asked us to look into the Pathways program. We have had several meetings with Chancellor Irwin from Hilo and Dr. Matthews, I think Bruce Matthews from Hilo. And we organized a familiarization trip for them, for their senior staff and senior researchers to come out. I think it was in probably the third week in August that about 15 of the people from Hilo came over. The concept that we worked out with Chancellor Irwin is that these, and they visited 5 businesses. They were there all day. The concept is that these professors and senior administrators at the university need to actually have an experience to have boots on the ground and walk around these businesses, talk to the owners so they can understand
What the needs
kinds
are,
of
yeah.
pathways they need to plan for. And we did that. And then we want to do that with the high schools next. We were delayed by the COVID.
Okay, but what about the community college? Because some of these jobs may not be bachelor's. It could be AA or CPE certificate.
Industrial technician is a big area. We will do the community college.
Yeah, so I don't know if you guys can take a look at flushing out the deputy's plan on the circles.
Clusters.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Thank you, Chair. And the last one is for the improvements and upgrades.
Can I ask a question about-
Sorry.
Greg, I think this is a great opportunity since you have so much demand for research space there. And how far have you gone with exploring public-private partnership? This is one of those things where I think that a private entity could put up the 12 million bucks and you cut a deal with them to over time or what have you, have a private entity actually pay for it rather than the taxpayers of Hawaii pay for this research
Yeah.
expansion.
I understand, Senator, you mentioned that to me before. We don't think that the characteristics of this project meet the requirements for a public-private partnership. There's not enough opportunity. There's no opportunity for leasing of apartments or anything like that, revenue. It's really a research campus. There's no like large office building or housing available to be a part of this project where we could provide some development rights to make a public-private partnership work. We do have an area that we've set aside in the upper park, an 80-acre that we believe is the perfect site for this public-private partnership, but the research campus at the lower end of the park is not appropriate.
But the research space that you're planning to build out is going to be used by private entities, right? It's not like UH or community colleges, right?
It could be UH, as some of the UH people rent space from us. And it is private sector as well.
So why would we use taxpayer monies to build out a research center that's going to benefit a for-profit entity?
It's to us, it's about creating an investment and an ecosystem for entrepreneurs to do ocean technology research, to grow this sector and make an investment in this sector so we can maintain our self-sufficiency and continue to grow our agency to create additional jobs. It's more of a, to me, it's an investment in this economic sector, I believe, and the potential for growth in this area.
Right. But to me, everything you just mentioned is a perfect recipe for public-private partnership. So it troubles me how for certain projects at NELHA, you always ask for taxpayer assistant CIP when this is one example where there's some private money that should, I think, go into helping build out this expansion of your research park.
Well, some of this you could use for maybe revenue bond, right?
Could be. Absolutely.
So then that way it's not just all state funds. You could do a revenue bond and then the leases from those facilities can pay for the revenue bond. So maybe it's going to be a mixture. But I think if you end up, I think you have a stronger nexus to address this concern if you actually have pipelines and pathways, because then it's our guys that are gonna be getting jobs and innovation, our graduates from the high schools.
Since the establishment of NELHA, how many incubation projects have been completed and became commercial businesses in Hawaii?
Since the establishment of NELHA, I will, it's been 45 years. I can get back to you, and I think I can put together a good list of projects.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and then your upgrades.
Yep, improvements and upgrades to the seawater system, improvements to the NELHA's internal electrical grid, pumps and associated hardware, as well as the equipment control and monitoring software, which provides surface and deep sea water throughout the host park. Upgrades will facilitate the development of additional renewable energy systems, including photovoltaic, as well as the ability to transfer power among pump stations. This request is 1.9 million in reimbursable GEO bonds in fiscal year 24.
Okay. No, we can go back now to other questions that members might have.
Sure.
Just give one question.
Go ahead.
Sure, didn't answer.
Oh, I thought you said that was the last.
Prior to you being here,
But he said that was the last one.
Oh, last for now, I'm sorry, sir.
Oh.
We have quite a bit more. But we can do whatever you want, sir. I said not last for the 5 of the NELHA. I'm sorry, my fault.
Sure. I'm Nelha real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. Thanks, Greg. And so the seawater system. Oh, wait, no, I'll ask you that later. Good. Thanks, sir.
No, go ahead. Just this. Don't lose fight. Come on. That's the question.
It's just for my information.
Yeah, that's fine.
well, we wait like no too.
Okay. Sorry for the confusion. BED 150, which is Craig Nakamoto and the HCDA. And so make sure I get it. Kewalo Basin Harbor Wharf, fiscal year 24, $25 million. The project is to replace the wharf concrete deck, including repair of concrete spalling, bulkhead beams, pile caps, and piles that have been deemed highly unsafe. The deterioration is continuing at an alarming pace, warranting measures to restrict pedestrian access over a significant portion of the deck. And so the older portion of the deck is 94 years old, while the newer section is 50 years old, has reached its end of its useful life. And
But this one you cannot do revenue bond to.
No, we cannot do revenue bonds. There's no revenues to support.
But this is not a project with Howard Hughes guys though.
So, Chair, just a little bit of context. That pier area and the whole harbor is under a general lease with Howard Hughes Corporation. It's a lease that started in 2014 and ends in 2049, I believe, with options. When we entered into that lease, we turned over the management and operation of the harbor to Howard Hughes. They agreed to repair and replace the floating docks in Kewalo Basin Harbor. HCDA agreed to replace the Fisherman's Wharf pier and repair the damage to the spalling that is occurring on the post. That was the lease that we agreed to with Howard Hughes. But it still is on state land, and it is something that we need to replace, not for public safety reasons, but also if we can repair that, it would allow for full utilization by fishing vessels, by private vessels to moor there. And I believe it also presents itself as an opportunity for people to walk over to the harbor, walk on the pier because of the bridge that's being built across of Alameda Boulevard. Again, for context, Chair, this was something that was in the budget last year that got taken out.
Okay,
Wait, it was in the budget? It was in the proposed budget. right?
In proposed budget, I'm sorry,
It wasn't in the budget.
no, it wasn't a proposed budget that got taken out.
I mean, it was to fund a bad deal that the state made, and I thought you were gonna go back and discuss this with Howard Hughes.
Yeah, and I think it's gonna be,
And of course, they said, well, no.
yeah, it's gonna be hard to make that deal different. I still think that we
Well,
have,
what's the liability of the state if we don't fund it?
I think the liability of the state is that, we face breach of contract claims. And then we also, if there's an accident on the wharf, we could face claims against them. But I'd rather look at it from the positive, Senator. I think we can get the money to fix it. I think we can utilize it fully. It can be a resource for the community and a resource for people around there, as well as a place where there can be full docking of fishing vessels and private vessels.
okay.
But it's currently leased by Howard Hughes?
It is.
For how long?
Till about 2049 with options.
So they're also the beneficiary of any improvements.
We're also the beneficiary because we get lease rent payments under that.
Well, that's why I was saying do revenue
Yeah.
bond.
I don't know, I don't believe, Chair, that the revenue from that lease rent would cover the debt service for $25 million.
Not even part of it?
Where would the other part?
No, you're asking for us to help. So it cannot do a mixture of revenue bond and bond?
We could, I guess we could. do
Because
that.
you already heard, you're not gonna get the straight bond. I mean, hello,
I'd like. Yeah.
you have time.
Yeah.
You have time.
What do they pay in lease rent?
It's about
Annually.
300,000 a year, and then once the net cash flow, their net cash flow turns positive, then they're gonna pay percentage rate.
And when is that?
I'm not sure when they're gonna turn positive. They submit financial reports to us, and they also they're paying off the debt service from the repairs of the floating dock. So once that gets net, then they'll pay percentage.
Well, I'd like to know what that information is. Thank you.
So for all these possible commercial operators in the future who will be using the improved facility, who gets the benefit of those lease rents? Would it be Howard Hughes or the state?
I think both, Chair. I mean, I think to the extent to
Well,
the
are we gonna get the lease rents?
Yeah.
From the commercial operators?
the revenues from the slip fees all go into revenues. Once the net cash flow turns positive, we could get the benefit of that through percentage rent. It's on the gross. It's
Just for my curiosity, could you send us that agreement with Howard Hughes? I just want to see what the terms are. So if you send it to the chair,
yes.
I don't know if he wants to share
Yeah,
it with everybody or.
Hey, we're very transparent. I mean, look, we're going line by line in public.
Thank you, Chair. Hawai'i Stream Access Road for fiscal year 24, $400,000. Project is the access road to Hawai'i Stream for maintenance and clearing. The owner of the stream has a duty to maintain, dredge, and clear such streams so that the natural flow of water runs unimpaired. And so we'll be responsible for moving that debris and moving forward with that project.
So Chair, this is a request for CIP money for our Heia Community Development District. We have a lot,
Kind of awkward to call it a development district though,
yeah.
because I don't think there's gonna be any development there, right? It's just the Lo'i and
Well, there's a lot of, because of the work of Kakaako, the long-term lessee there, Kaneko Schultz, we've been able to restore some of the Lo'i there. And so there is actually economic development. There's a.
yeah,
oil
I'm just
mill.
talking about the rest compared to the rest of HCDA.
Yeah.
It's not, it doesn't really.
No, it's definitely not like Kakaako, Kalaeloa, but it is a community development district in another way. Preservation, development of, food source like poi mill. So they have, Kakaako is the long-term lessee. As a landowner, we're responsible for cleaning the stream that runs through that development district. Kakaako is responsible for doing that. So as part of a district infrastructure, we're asking for 400,000 to help construct a gravel access road from the bridge in the subdivision that will allow better access to the stream for cleanup.
Okay, the million.
So that's the 400,000.
No,
The
next.
next one.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. Combine those two together for the $1 million for planning and the 35 million for the construction. And that's for the Kakaako Street improvements. State of Hawaii and the city and county of Honolulu are collaborating to improve the streets in central Kakaako. Improvements will bring the roadways up to current city and state standards, and infrastructure improvements will support future development. And so,
What's the city putting into this?
So this is part of a collaborative effort with the city, some discussions that took place last year. The city has I believe in their CIP budget, plans to make major street improvements to Queen Street, Waihole, and Waimanu.
How much?
Sorry.
How much?
I don't know how much they have in their CIP budget, but it's gonna be major streets. Yeah. And then.
Well, ballpark, more than 35 million?
I think it's gonna be, for that it's gonna be more than 35 million, way more than 35 million. On our part, Chair, we're gonna look at major improvements to one road in central Kakaako. Then the 1 million is for some additional money we need for design and planning, and then the 35 million is for construction. I think the justification for this, Chair, is central Kakaako and that area is very underdeveloped. And so if we can, because of the infrastructure, it limits full development in that area. So if we can put in street improvements like drainage, underground utilities, curb and gutter, there's.
You're talking Queen Street.
Correct. Sorry, street, yeah.
So the whole Queen Street would be modernized to
That's
underground.
under the city. I think that's their plan.
City has Queen
City,
Oh.
City has Queen Street.
So this would be other streets.
Like the side, the small
Yes.
interior
Yes.
streets.
We still want to work with the city to agree on improvement guidelines and design criteria and enter into an MOU with the city ahead
So
of time.
is
so that
this
we
is
can-
basically shovel ready stuff?
This one is not exactly shovel ready. I think it's gonna take a little more design and planning work. The Kiwalo Basin Harbor is shovel ready.
Okay.
Chair, can I follow up on that? While we're on this? For the side streets in Kakaako and all that are not Queen Street, when I had a brief stint working at HCDA back in the day, there were plans at the time conceptually to do like pedestrian, like whatever thoroughfare connecting the area. And it seems like only now has that area kind of matured enough where that's a possibility. Is that sort of thing where, you can have indoor, outdoor dining and all that stuff for those businesses and connectivity for all the folks in the condos walking around and biking and stuff. Is that at all part of the discussions today? And
Yeah. I
this sort of program?
Yes, I think the idea is to work with the city to incorporate complete street ideas and principles. Make it more, walkable and also as a connector, some of these streets as a connector to the transit station that's now has its terminus at Civic Center and Hollywood.
I guess just not so much the complete street stuff, but actually taking like one of those entire side streets and turning it into that whole thing. So
it's a closed street. You mean?
yeah, kind of like Denver 16th Street or
Yeah.
Lincoln Road in Miami or any of those those things.
I don't think we're looking at that in this project, but
Okay.
I think we're looking at a complete
Thank you.
streets.
Thank you, Chair.
But the city will take dedication then of these improvements.
Well,
What about the old improvements?
so let me talk about these improvements. I think with Chair, where if we start on these improvements, we want to get the city to buy in on the design criteria and.
So they would take dedication, right?
They would take it.
But the other streets in Kakaako, are they still under state control now?
Some are still in the city, there may be a few under HCD, especially the last ones that we did, the Queen Street. Yeah, part of the new Queen Street, but most.
But are any of portions of this project and some of the others, are they shovel ready enough so that you could at least do the planning and other things
Oh,
with
yeah.
A funds?
Oh, yeah,
Yeah, so the earlier question from the chair was, whether it's a shovel ready, the construction might not be, but the planning and the design could go forward fairly soon, right?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I misunderstood the question. Yes.
So if you could break down
Yeah.
what that cost is, that would be
Yeah.
useful so that we might have the option of using A funds
Yeah.
for that.
Yeah, we have, right now, we have 2 million in CIP money that we're. gonna
Right,
use.
so but you can provide that number.
yeah.
And you can do that for the others too, because I would think that the road, a stream road maybe, and some of the others you could. I assume,
The Hay stream one would be, we have to procure for that, but I think that one would.
I know, but if you could do it within the biennium, I think then you can use A funds, right?
Yeah. I think the planning, for the street improvements, that's shovel ready. Yeah, we can start on that.
And you already said Kewalo Basin and shovel ready.
That's about as shovel ready as can be, Chair. I will make that shovel ready.
Okay, but now you have a new fin chair, so I don't know if that they're gonna agree.
Yeah. But I'm gonna make my strong case for Kewalo Basin.
Liability is great if you don't do.
Yeah, the liability is there, but I
Then you
also.
gotta go help lobby for him up on the third floor.
Yeah, what was that guy doing? Not sure.
Okay, so the next one,
Kalailo Electrical and Communication Infrastructure Improvements, fiscal year 24, 47 million. State funds to match federal funds appropriate through the National Defense Authorization Act. Navy electrical system is deteriorating and the lack of reliable electricity was cited in
but
a
this
recent.
went in last year too, though, I thought, right?
No, it didn't. It
Oh,
didn't.
I thought there was some ARPA we had put in.
No, the ARPA at the end was put in for the 12.125 to Saratoga Road. It was in, so we put the Saratoga, I just spoke to that, we put that in the steady state steady state budget, first round. This 47 million is in addition to the 12.125 for Saratoga. And the reason it's 47, Chair, is we have been working with Jen Sabas, who is working with the Military Affairs Council, and she is working with Senator Gordon to try to get 47 million through the National Defense Authorization Act. I understand that it's been authorized, but it still has to go through appropriation this year. So I think this is a good opportunity to see if we can get the 47 to match what we hope to get from the the National Defense through the National Defense Authorization Act and the 12 million. If we can get the federal money, the 47 million in matching and the 12.125, we can really electrify the whole district, thereby getting a lot of users off the deteriorating Navy grid. And then on to, HECO, reliable HECO. And the major stakeholders in Kailua Chair are supportive of this, Hunt and HECO. And I believe the community is in support of this. One of the major impediments to future development in Kailua, there's others, infrastructure.
Oh, it's infrastructure, yeah.
But electrical is probably the top sort of infrastructure need in Kailua. Top.
Okay.
Sorry.
Senator Favela.
Yeah, the only thing was that, I was told that most of these entities that you just said was, gonna be helping putting in the grid. Hunt Development, was gonna put in their portion. They had, Palsy Electric, that was doing certain areas, but most of the people that you just said that's investing in the area said that they was going to do their part. Because the last time when you guys had this plan, I was still on the neighborhood board. You guys would change the grid and then now the Navy water belongs to a private company. But it seems like more and more we go into it that's gonna be expanding, more and more the costs coming on to us guys now on the Navy grid. Because the guys who use them, like the Navy homes, that there was Navy before, transfer over to like rentals, whatever. But all of that was all the infrastructure transferring over going forward was supposed to be the people that was developing the area, including Kamakanali, when they made that intersection over there and crossed over our historical train tracks. I don't know how they did them, it was a miracle, but they were supposed to start paying for this. And then this is the second time I'm hearing, coming through HCDA, that we're gonna be, it's very important for the stakeholders that's there. I was Point Elementary been on that grid a long time. When Hunt came before me, I asked Hunt what they was gonna do. Same thing with a little bit down the road. Chair, that they could have tied into the bottled water supply, but they didn't. They used an old Navy grid for the housing that they have now, and then now they let us help pay for the infrastructure of the electricity coming to their development. When the question that is, why are we paying for the grid upgrades in their area when they were supposed to put them in? Same thing with the roads, that we were supposed to only put in the part that it belongs to, or the state that is HCDA, and not their development too. So I'm just hearing that you said, oh, Hunt is one of the providers or persons that's gonna benefit from this, but that's not what they told me when they came here. Well, and even with the water, they could have go across the street, tied into bottled water supply. That was gonna cost them a little bit too much. So they tied into the new water that the Navy sold over to this new company. And now I'm hearing that we're gonna be paying most of the electrical upgrades.
So, Senator, for example, like on Saratoga Avenue that runs kind of through that main part where a lot of the development is gonna occur. With that 12 million, if we're gonna do that project down Saratoga Road, we would seek to get cost share from Hunt, the benefited landowners. And HECO, typically that kind of cost share is what we've done in Kakaako with improvement district projects. We've sought to assess benefiting landowners a portion of the cost. And I think we would try to do that everywhere else in Kailua where the benefited landowners, we would try to assess the cost share and with HECO as well. So it's not entirely the state footing the bill. And as I said, I think this is a good opportunity to see if we can get some of this money in conjunction with the federal money, because Navy wants to get off, get the users off this grid. So we will try to cost share. Yeah.
So then when we build this development, we're gonna have a great electricity upgrade. What water are we gonna use?
Yeah, the water is a private system out there, and then the next kind of infrastructure upgrades we're gonna look to do in Kailua is probably drainage infrastructure.
Only reason why I'm seeing that is, it's a different company,
Yes,
but it's still the water from the Navy that the bottled water supply did not take over because of the substandards, the quality of the water. So we're gonna build subdivisions, add people to live over there, knowing that that water never meet bottled water supply standards. But then we're gonna upgrade the electrical grid and everything will be cherry, and then everybody will move in and have substandard water.
I understand where you're coming. I understand where you're coming.
But can that be addressed?
Water, is that?
Yeah, I mean, because you're gonna put all this in, and then if that's still an issue,
Yeah, I'll look into it as an infrastructure, but right now it's just. There's a private water company that operates the water system in Kailua. I'll look into it. Senator.
okay, well, I mean, there are sections of Oahu that
Yeah.
are not part of water supply.
Yeah.
I mean, a few.
Thank you.
Or is it gonna be like a HHFDC Waihole Waikani
Oh,
thing?
no.
Senator Wakai.
Thank you. I mean, I liked the thought process from Senator Favela about sharing of the costs here. And if I heard you correctly, you said you're gonna think about the cost sharing later. But later, you lose leverage, right? Isn't that time to figure out what the cost sharing now? Because after you build it out, then what's going to compel Hunt to pony up any money?
Actually, Senator Wakai, the cost sharing and assessment comes after, let's say, the Saratoga Road improvements with design comes out to $12 million. So at that point, then that's still the front end of the project. Then we would do we have to do an improvement district assessment, and there's rules, and then we would assess at that time. So it's at the front end.
But you're asking us for $47 million.
Right, it's for 47 million, but once we, let's say we do a section of road or improvements in in that little street, then once we know the cost, we go out and we assess benefited landowners along that stretch of, let's say, Enterprise or 4OC or Saratoga. And we cost share.
You're gonna get that all worked out later after the $12 million first investment. Then you're gonna work with the various parties on how they're gonna cost share the remainder of the
At
money?
each segment of the project, at each segment of the work, we would go out to benefited landowners, once we know the cost, and then assess proportionally for the cost of the improvements, or at least a part of the cost of the improvement. That's the formula we've used in Kakaako as well.
And how about for the long term? I mean, you're putting in infrastructure that HECO ultimately should bear the responsibility for. But I understand that waiting on HECO is not good for the community. But is there any discussion as to, HECO is not going to give these people free power, right? They're going to get all of these. You're creating a new customer base for HECO. Is there any cost sharing long term that you envision? You're going to get a piece of the action that HECO charges all of these customers since we as taxpayers put in the infrastructure?
I don't think a piece of the action, Senator, but I think what we try, like I said, we try to do, once we determine the cost for a particular stretch or improvements, we would then go out and do assessments and try to cost share with people benefited landowners. So there is that.
Okay, it just seems like we should take care of those things at the front end versus the back end. It's kind of like what Senator Keith Agron mentioned with the harbor things. Like now we're trying to figure out like how we can backpedal and get Howard Hughes to pay its fair share. When if we took care of that at the front end, we wouldn't be scrambling years from now wondering why didn't we do this earlier.
I think for Kewalo Basin, when we first assessed the repairs that needed to be made to that, and I think when the lease was entered into with Howard Hughes, I think the cost of repairing the wharf at that time was considerably less. And I believe it was looked at as, the Howard Hughes was taking over and relieving us, the state or HCDA, of not only the liability of running a harbor, but the cost of running a harbor, cost of managing that and the slips. Because we got Kewalo Basin Harbor from DOT harbors. And it's not in our expertise to run that harbor. So I think, you know, the deal was it's going to relieve us of a lot of the liability, the operational the cost of that. And it has, because if we still had that harbor today, we would have had to probably pay for the cost of floating dock plus the repairs to the port.
Okay. I just still think that the state has leverage at the beginning. We have less leverage later on.
Yeah.
So
I think, you know, maybe I'm not explaining this correctly or clearly, Senator, but you know, once we go through, let's say, the design phase for Saratoga, and we know it's going to be 12 million. So we design it and then we go out and we do like an ID project assessment, and we say, okay, the cost is going to be 12 million, and this is Kiko's proposed share. This is the benefited landowner's proposed share, and then we do an assessment, and then we get them. That's what we've done in Kakaako. So it's not on the back end, but it's on the of a particular segment of that project.
So how about, I mean, couldn't we give you $12 million now? You come back and tell us how the cost sharing is, and then Senator Delacruz, if he sees fit, gives you the remaining 35 million based on what you're able to get in the cost share.
Yeah, I mean, just to be clear, the request is 12 million in the steady state budget, and then we're asking for 47 as part of in the supplemental budget, second round budget. But you know, I can take 12, but I'd like to really get 47 to match what I hope to get through the efforts of the.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'd like to.
Okay, but as time goes on, because we're not going to get the budget bill till after crossover.
Yeah.
I mean, hopefully you can give us an update by then.
I will. I'll be. I mean, there is a timing issue with when the federal funds, we know it's going to be available, and budget discussions here.
Chair, just a question. So the 47 million, that is to get federal funds, that would be the match, or what is the 47 million for?
Senator, I don't know if getting the 47 is a prerequisite to getting the 47 to the congressional delegation. I think in my view, I've been asked to see how we can leverage other sources of funding for these kind of projects. So when the opportunity came up that 47 might be available through the Codell to the Navy, I felt like if we can get 47 plus the 12 and the 47 from the Codell, I think we could do a lot of the electrical work that's needed to be done in Kalailo. It was an opportunity.
But we wouldn't get the federal money if we didn't have some match. Is that what?
No,
so it's not related.
It's not that kind of a match with condition.
So how much development are you expecting in that area?
You know, I think in Kalailo, the estimates for the master plan are maybe like 3,000 housing units that could be built still in that district. We already have a Gentry project that has been permitted. There's a possible other housing project that could be come up for review. There's still more development that could be done there.
I'm just wondering if that would be an ideal situation where you could try to implement a TIF.
Yeah, I think there's a TIF would be good if we could implement it there.
Can you just explain to the members what a TIF is?
It's TIF stands for tax increment financing, and basically it's a way for the state in this case to kind of get some benefit from the increased tax value up over and above a base to the real property tax.
Yeah, so that means in addition to property tax, if the state pays for all of the infrastructure and a TIF is created, all the users in that district, all the residents in that district would have to pay an additional tax on top of their property tax to pay back the bond on the infrastructure.
I think there's a bill, I think that has been proposed by OPSD.
Oh, okay.
To try to, I understand what we have to do is get a ballot measure on to approve the TIF. So that, I think that bill is in, yeah, and I plan to support it.
Okay, so if that, is that a possibility?
It's a possibility, to look at the details, but it's a possibility.
Okay. I mean, I don't know if it's a combination of A fund, C fund, and the TIF versus just, I mean, that's right. I think people want some type of insurance that it's not just the state, it sounds like, from what I'm gathering from the committee. So if there's other opportunities for even a portion of it being revenue bond or portion being county, portion being TIF, however you want to mix that up. And if you can take a look at that.
Thank you, Chair. So the last one for BED 150 is a $800,000 request for the Kakaako parking plan, study of existing parking resources and development of a parking infrastructure plan that would benefit the state, city, and private stakeholders with their long-term master planning. Plan will serve as a resource to develop parking infrastructure in that district. Additionally, the study will evaluate the various types of high capacity, high efficiency parking options.
But why wasn't this planned before when we did the master plan for Kakaako?
So the reason why this ask is in CFA request is the recent because the rail is gonna have sort of an unexpected terminus at Palekawila Place.
Because Ala Moana is no longer.
Yeah, is no longer, at least for right now, is no longer an option. So because of that, from our perspective, there really is no parking for that rail station.
But why doesn't Hart or the city pay for that?
So the way we look at it, Chair, is with the powers that HCD has, we can look at use this money to do a study, see what the available resources are. We also have the ability to acquire land and use our zoning powers and maybe change the rules to incentivize private parties to develop, parking that can be used for district parking for.
But because Hart and the city created that situation, why wouldn't they at least pay for the 800,000?
Yeah, they could, but I think it's, we're in a better position to really implement this. I don't know how long it's gonna take for the city to do it, but I think.
No, I'm not saying they do it. I'm saying they give you the money to do it since they created the situation. I mean, you guys had any conversations or not?
We have not.
So you're just being proactive about it?
Yes.
Knowing that that's the last stop, it's going to require that kind of infrastructure.
It is the last stop for now. And I know that around Palekawila Place, there is no parking, there's no capacity at Salt. Chair, if there's concern about this, what I can do is I can take this back and then.
No, I think it makes sense. I think I'm just surprised Hart or the city isn't doing a partnership with this.
Yeah. Yeah. I can also have some conversations with Hart. But I don't know what their capacity is to help, but I think I can have those discussions.
I'm not saying they have to help. I'm saying they should help fund it.
Yeah, help fund it. I can-
Yeah,
I can-
they
I
don't-
can ask.
You know, that DTS, when the city is looking at that whole area and it's congested, so
because wouldn't
there
they,
should be discussion with them, yeah. The city and Hart.
okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So I think the rest are BED 170 with Agribusiness Development Corporation. First is the Waihole Reclaimed Water Wastewater Irrigation System, $124 million. Sydney County, Honolulu, Waihole Wastewater Treatment Facility is discharging treated water into the Waihole Reservoir, Lake Wilson. The project proposes to pipe the treated water for use as irrigation water for nearby farmers. The project responds to a decades-long environmental condition, improving the water quality. This project supports the state's Waihole Freshwater Recreational Facility, the City and County of Honolulu, and uses the water as a resource to support area farmers. Project design was started in 2021. The design team was asked by the state to phase the project over multiple years, 2022 through 2024.
Okay, but wouldn't this be the state's, or actually not anywhere in Hawaii, actually, not just the state government, first project of recycling water and of this magnitude?
This is of this magnitude, yeah, I believe so. I think the city and county, we use recycling water, so basically only in the golf courses and maybe the Campbell industrial area, but not to this. I would say that, well, let me take that back. I think the amount of water that they recycle is different, yeah, but for an agricultural project, this is the biggest, for that thing.
So we're taking the outfall from the Waihole wastewater treatment plant,
right,
recycling it for ag.
Right, and this is what this allows is that if you take out the R1 water from, the lake, make the lake itself become usable irrigation water. Right now, they consider it as R2.
Yeah.
So it's unspec water. So it has limitations on what you can use it for. So it's kind of
you can
really
use
make
both
sense
once you put it
sometimes,
in.
So if you but what happened if you take the R1 water out, then that would, give a lot of options to the lake, swimming, fishing, everything it'll open it up,
Okay,
Would this site B would be on the land that we're buying?
No, this is the land that we already have purchased, the Galbraith estate. So, that would service that area, and then a lot more in the North Shore, other lands for the North Shore. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, so this affects all the farms between Waihole all the way to Wailua and Waimea.
Yeah, once we do that, and I guess this is like anticipation that the state is gonna take over the irrigation system from Dole, then yes, that'll service practically the whole.
That
North
whole
Shore.
half of the island almost, yeah. Okay, warehouses.
Yes, $5 million request is to plan, design, construct agricultural facilities and related improvements for the Whitmore Food Hub on TMKs 712-9, Area 1 and 712-4, which portion the project supports the growing need for food safety certified facilities and food hubs.
Next.
Waihole value added.
You gotta name it other stuff though, don't use the same town's name.
Sorry, sir. Value added product development center on Oahu. 3.75 million.
Because then it's like Kakaako improvements all in one area and then all Waihole in one area.
This is our ADC project, sir. Not sure, Senator Kim. Requested to begin the process to purchase this property, which is next door to the currently under construction.
So this is a partnership with Leeward.
Yes, the value added product development center. I was lucky enough to tour it with Director Nakatani and thought it was really great project. And so ADC owns the adjacent parcel. And with the University of Hawaii's developing that parcel, so additional land will enable the project to expand the operations and have greater potential for that development center. Asking price is currently 3.5 million. And I think it's being appraised, sir.
Yes, appraisal, we've excuse me, we've gotten the appraiser to start to doing the due diligence, right, for the property.
Okay, what is the lands?
Okay.
The land is approximately, I think it was 2,200 square feet.
No, the next
Next one, sir.
Agricultural lands, okay. That's a parcel that was, a while back, we got the appropriation for that, parcel, to buy that parcel, but, unfortunately, it didn't have clear title. So the money lapsed. So now they're done the due diligence and have clear title. So they're coming back to buy that parcel. It's a land that's kind of adjacent to what we already bought in Gilbert.
And the price stayed the same?
I'm not sure. It might have gone up a little bit, but
So it says our current asking price is rated at 2.95 million. The information that was provided.
Okay.
The seller cleared title or?
there was not clear title. There was two people that owned that property. So they've gone to court and they've cleared it and they have the clear title now.
Irrigation system, safety improvements statewide.
Yeah, that's, this is for Waihole, and this request is on behalf of the Department of Agriculture, because this is a project that they had, it's an ADC project, it's an ADC property, reservoir. However, the Department of Agriculture and the US Army Corps is doing this project collectively. So the Corps had requested monies for shortfall, what they anticipate shortfall. And we wasn't sure that the department would request the funds. So just to be sure, we requested the funds on behalf of them. So you might, I'm not privy to their budget, so they might have put it in, I'm not sure. But just to make sure that the project doesn't fall through the cracks, we put the amount in for the department.
And then the workforce housing.
Yeah. So this is a project that we looked at in Waihole. And rather than the whole project in, I guess, Whitmore had a workforce housing component. But if you really look at this, if we could get this, and we're kind of competing, I'm not sure who we're competing with, the city, but if we can get this for workforce housing, this would be really ideal. Because number one, it's close by to all of the amenities, right? Transportation, you have the pharmacy, you have the hospital, you have the police and everything else like that. Transportation mode, it's a block and a half away from Kamehameha Highway in the middle of Waihole. So that'll be a really, really good purchase if we could do it.
So why C funds and not A?
It could be, but if we were to do that, my question, I guess, is how long is that A funds good for? A year?
The biennium.
Oh, biennium, okay, I think we can do that. I mean, we have enough time yet for doing that kind of stuff like that.
Okay, any questions for the department? Follow-up questions?
No.
Senator Pavel?
No. I don't know if this has been asked, but the last time you was here, you said, you know, you was gonna go to the board and then, you was gonna submit, for the HTA, I guess for the bid for the procurement. So what was the outcome of your meeting with the board? Since you was gonna take board action and you was going to the board and do some board action. So what was your board action, results after that meeting?
Thank you for that question, Senator. The bold action wasn't received very well by the HTA board, and I did apologize to them. And I did say that I misstepped by taking that action without notifying them ahead of time. And I explained that there are limitations as to what I can do with, as a board member, an ex officio member of the board, and it was an agendized board item, so I did explain that to them. So I did apologize for not telling them ahead of time, nor letting John DeFries know ahead of time as well. So, they, in open session, had a discussion and decided that HTA and their staff has it under control and that they will move forward with the procurement as the board directs their staff to do so. And so we submitted a response to the WAM committee based on their questions, stating that the HTA board said they have full control of the procurement and have assured me with deadlines. They have since provided, the team has since provided me with a confidential summary of the scope, proposed timeline, and proposed budget that was discussed, I believe, in executive session by the board of directors on that Thursday, last week, Thursday.
So HTA is still pursuing to separate the contract.
I would defer to Mr. DeFries, as I was not at that executive session, sir.
But I thought you were a board member.
I am not officially, but I'm an ex officio member, I believe, by the statute, an act last year. But there are 12 members of the board, and all 12 positions are filled or currently occupied. And so,
So he cannot get on the
no,
executive session?
there's, I think by statute, I was told by the Attorney General's office that there are 12 members of the board by statute, and that I was added, or the DBA director, excuse me, was added as an ex officio member, but there are 12 members seated, and so I am not a active voting board member. But I think I still believe that I am an ex officio member, and therefore sunshine laws still apply to me as a potential board member. And so I am limited to what I can do with the sunshine laws. And luckily, I just ran into the OIP, Miss Kakaako Park, I believe is her name. I'm sorry if I mispronounced it, and Cheryl, and she said that she will sit down with me and discuss with me what applies to the DBA director as a ex officio member, but not seated on the board. So I will have a follow-up discussion with her.
Even number board though.
I think the statute does provide for a 12-member board, so that 7 is the quorum and decision-making. And
Yeah, but I guess the question is when it's 6-6.
I'm sorry, sir, I don't have an answer for that. I think Mr. Freeze can answer that better. I think 7 is required for an action to carry, though, if I'm understanding your question correctly, Senator Kidani.
7, John DeFries, Hawaii Tourism Authority. 7 is a quorum out of the 12. And I recall last year when the DBED director was added to the board, the authorization of a 13th member had not been passed or addressed. And so his predecessor, Director McCartney, actually attended the board meetings, but did not vote. And the same is true with Director Sarayasu.
But the ex-official member does not attend executive session?
Say that again.
I got the impression he didn't attend the executive session.
Yeah, I don't think.
No, I did not attend. I had a different meeting to attend to that time.
Oh, it's not because you couldn't go.
Oh, no, I had to leave at a certain time.
Yeah.
And I
Oh.
did indicate that to the board. I wasn't, I'm not sure they didn't go into the executive session.
You with all of this, you didn't want to go to the executive session meeting?
I had another meeting that I had to attend to at that time.
But you're trying to unravel this.
I was in open session. We had a discussion with the entire board of directors that were there, and they assured me that they would take over and work with staff to move these RFPs forward. And I think Mr. Freed is here ready to explain.
No, I know, but at one point the DBED director was not part of this board. And so you're almost
I'm still not part of the board is my understanding. I'm an ex official member, but not
Well,
a
just like
board member
DLNR, right, is an ex-official member.
of the HTA. I don't believe they're ex official member. HTA, DLNR is not an ex official member of
No,
HTA board.
that's correct.
I can check and double check that and get back to you. I think they used to be.
My understanding is that used to be the
Well,
case.
there's a section in your current law that says that HTA is supposed to regularly meet with DLNR, DOT director
Yes,
to discuss, I guess, destination impacts.
correct.
I mean, I don't know if you guys ever met
Oh,
with them, but
We do that on a, as we address the actionable items in DMAPs and the sub-actions. So there is that kind of interaction between those departments.
but still, the DBED director was allowed to attend the executive session meeting though, right?
Yeah, I had no reason to believe he wasn't. At that time,
Okay, did the previous director go into executive session meetings?
during the time I've been at HTA, the DBED director attended, my recollection is the DBED director attended sessions that were convened by the governor, but not regularly at our executive sessions.
But he did go.
Yes,
So your understanding is that you couldn't, or that you just didn't go? I believe I have to be invited to attend the executive session. That's what I was told. I can double check that, and that's what I said. I need to meet with Ms. Kakaako.
You're talking about like a $40 million contract, you know, you want to make sure that
Yeah, why didn't you check that before when you first got in?
I will check and follow up on that. And I just met her today.
The only thing is that because we had confidence of your boldness going into this meeting, so being bold, we would.
that's why the committee's still here, because we're just waiting for the next bombshell.
I want to avoid all bombshells, sir.
I mean, because what they're saying about the amount of money, and then what I'm worried about, I don't know if anybody from the AG's office here. Reason why I keep bringing this up is because this whole mess is going to fall HTA, DBED into a lawsuit. And that's the reason why I'm asking you, and I asked you, you would keep it together, because now you knew, you can direct them, because you're the new DBED director. Same with HTA, to make the bold move to keep it together. But apparently, you guys are gonna separate them, and it's gonna cause a lot of problems for this process. You guys think not, but it is. It's gonna cause a big problem. So we're gonna have a problem now when you guys put this out, and then you guys gonna get somebody that's gonna sue you guys. So I just wanted to know if the AG was here, if you guys are ready for that. That's why I asked you when you was gonna go to this meeting to see if you could keep it together, but you didn't know you could be in an executive meeting, and then now DeFreeze he's gonna give the answers of what happened to the meeting. So can you share with us, please?
you know, the HTA board directed the staff to proceed on a 2 RFP path, which is exactly what we're doing. I should point out that it wouldn't surprise me in the least if you will find teams who will compete for both. And, you know, it's our kuleana to run the procurement correctly and flawless, you know, and sterile. Okay. The reality is, if you invest the kind of time, energy, and money into it, and you do not prevail, you are not awarded. You're going to do everything you can to vet this, and so the protest becomes an important part of the procurement process. But just the fact that the two proposals are split is not going to prevent this one same team from competing for both. And I would be surprised if we don't see that.
I guess you're not understanding, because you guys are putting it separate. I'm not talking about when you guys put them out, you guys will get the protest. That's a given. I'm talking about now that you guys wanna go forward, separate them, all the guys that went bid and all the guys that was awarded and all that, now they're gonna get zip, nothing. Cause at the time, oh my gosh, can't even think of the abbreviation, get too much in my head. Anyway, I just gonna say, Julio Lewis had the.
CNHA,
Yeah,
sir.
CNHA, they got the bid, right? They was willing to work with the other guys to come together and work it out, okay? It was, previous guy, Mike decided to say, no, let's go put them up and let's go separate them. That caused the confusion from the beginning. So what I'm saying is that these guys was gonna work it out on their own, but Mike wanted to do something different and it didn't work out. What I'm saying is that both of these guys was gonna really go the one that they was working on in. So that's what I'm saying. I'm not saying the future ones that you guys put out. It's a given gonna be on test. I'm talking about once you guys send that out, you guys are gonna get a complaint from both of them on how it's being done. And that's what I think you guys not aware of.
To be clear, you're saying that at the time we issue the separate RFPs, you're anticipating that there will be legal action taken.
No,
Right? I'm sorry, right?
no, I was just gonna say, I thought he meant that there's gonna be legal action from the previous ones.
Some legal action on the from the two previous or after the completion of the third procurement?
No, I'm thinking the two
Currently.
previous. All the mess ups was done on the two previous ones.
I am not aware of any legal actions being pursued
Yet.
by any of the parties yet.
Yet.
Thank you.
So we got both of your responses. They're not complimentary. And if you guys want to explain why.
I can explain as to what we put together. And
Well, no, maybe if you can just explain why the DBED's response is different than the HTA response. What are the differences and why?
I can explain as to our department response, and I think Senator Kim said to do it independently, so I didn't collaborate with
No, I know.
HTA with respect to their response.
No, I know. I'm
reply
talking now
as to-
that the responses are done.
Sure, I can.
They have a version of a timeline. You have a version of a timeline.
It's not really a timeline. We ask that you give us when you asked for the deadlines, when it came in, and what it was. That's what we asked you for, but what did you give us?
I provide the dates, the times of the messages that we sent, and then when we got replies from HTA. That's on this sheet here. I'm sorry, I thought I provided what you asked for, which is the dates and times of what I sent, and then the replies and the summary of the replies and what I did receive from them.
It's just a list of the date and the time and what we don't.
No, but I thought you were, so you didn't tell them, okay, you have to finish this phase by this date with a paper trail stating the deadline.
I was asking them for deadlines and for information back for my briefings with the governor's office on the progress of that. And so I've asked for information from them. I didn't tell them when to put out the RFP.
Okay,
if
in
that-
your mind, when did you want the RFP to go out? What was the agreement?
The first idea or concept that I asked them was to put it out before the state of
No, but
state address.
When do you, okay, so what
Before
was
the
the
state
date
of state address, which I think the
you-
17th or so was the date we first
of January?
talked about.
So you
Correct.
wanted the two RFPs to go out by January 17th.
That was the first intent, or first discussion.
Okay, so
back
did you
in-
communicate that with them?
Yeah, where is it in writing?
I have to look at the exact details of what I provided, and I can provide.
Because because you have the two, but you don't have attachments of the emails
Yes.
that may have shown that you actually gave them real deadlines. If not, the HTA response is you're just,
Yeah, the HCA response shows us the date it was requested, the requester, the deadline,
Okay.
when it was, when the response date went in, and the information that was
Okay.
given. And then you told us, this is based, if I can continue, you told us that the reason why you took over the RFP was they didn't meet your deadlines.
Yes.
And so what deadlines was that?
The deadlines for responses for the information back from them.
Okay, so the deadline that's on here is same day, as soon as possible, Tuesday, January 3rd, as soon as possible, clarifying the 1:42 p.m. Sunday, January 15th. Those are deadlines? As soon as possible, and they didn't meet your deadline. So you were gonna yank it? I want to know what your thinking was, because it worries me if you're gonna run this department and you have this kind of thinking going on. Something's a disconnect. I'm sorry.
The thinking was that
This is page 689 for the members, if you're trying to find it on the WAM file.
the thinking was that I would have information to share about the timing and the issuance of the RFP. And that when I got responses back, and I do have the emails to back it up, I can provide it to you. And I apologize that I didn't attach it in the submittal to WAM. And that the submittals that I got in return, the date of the RFP issuance was pushed back. The initial document that I get stated a January 17 date that the request for proposals would be issued, and that date changed and kept changing. And so then we asked for more information about the destination management support services contract, and that date changed as well. And so that's the information that I had, and that's why I said that the dates were slipping, and that's what I mentioned.
Well, you have here on 1/13, January 13.
Yes.
4:15 p.m. Legal director clarified that the draft RFPs were not being requested, just the revised scope and timeline summary. Director also asked to confirm the USA brand marketing RFP was to be issued on 1/17, the release date provided by H2N documents dated. Director requested the update summary by 1/15. Update summary. I mean, it's like, I just can't understand how you would take this major and take only half of it. That's the other problem I have. And yank something because of that. And then you go to a board meeting that you never even respond to the board, and then you hear from them. I mean, you're going backwards. You're doing this whole thing backwards, which really worries me that you're able to lead this department.
Thank you for those comments.
So what do you intend to do about it? I mean, you cannot just say thank you for the comment and continue to do what you're doing.
I have learned from what I did and received several replies back, and the HTA Board of Directors asked for to provide their input, and based on their input at that open session, they did state that they were disappointed in my actions, and that they have stated that they are fully intended in moving forward with that, and that they believe their staff is capable of carrying out within the deadlines and timelines that they have since provided me, I think, on Sunday afternoon with respect to the timelines and dates. And that is a confidential communication that they provided with the dates and timelines and the summary. And so the board has committed that they will hold the staff accountable. And so that convinced me that they were capable and willing to meet those deadlines and timelines that they provided. And I think Mr. Freeze can speak further as to what the board instructed.
Well, I'm not convinced that your thinking, your judgment on this whole thing is in the best interest of the state at this point. And to say that, oh, the board, whether they assured you or not, the fact that you made this unilateral decision in your head, didn't tell anybody about it, and jumped on it, and then proceeded then to talk to the board. And you're an ex-official member of the board. Didn't you tell the board in the beginning when you got on that you were not going to interfere like how Mike McCartney, and that you would let them do their job? Didn't you tell them that?
I said that I would continue the procurement delegation, but I thank you for those comments, and I do want to respond by saying that I listened to the comments from this panel as well as others that I met.
Okay, you're missing the point.
I'm sorry.
You're missing the point. Yes, you listen, but for your thinking to be at that level, when you're at this level of being the executive director of DBES, worries me. Because how many more of this you're gonna have to listen to us or listen to the board or listen to somebody else because you decided that you're gonna do a knee-jerk reaction, or that you're not gonna think something through thoroughly before deciding something, or telling the board one thing and doing another thing. I mean, it shows a pattern. I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, I didn't know.
Can I follow up on something? Yeah. I'm just curious, now that HTA is gonna handle the procurement, what's the timetable, and until the new contract is let out, is the other one just extended then?
Okay, so let me tread lightly about the exact timetable, only because we've been advised to be cautious about it. I may have mentioned it in the last meeting that the first time HTA comments publicly is after the RFPs are posted on the state website. And so we're near. And I'm not avoiding your question. It's a good question, but I stopped short of naming the projected date. And let
me ask this way, then. I mean, the current extension only goes to March 31st.
Correct.
So will the RFP be out before then or not?
We're going to issue the RFP on the new RFPs, both of them. And then we have had preliminary conversation with SPO about the extension of the current contract, which expires March 31. And she has asked that we return with the exact timeline of the new contract so that she can then assess the request for the extension.
All right, so then the SPO could decide that we have a gap in the marketing contract then until a new contract is issued?
The current contract, the request that will go to SPO is that the current contract be extended.
But it's up to her to extend.
It's up to her. And if she chooses not to extend it, then we will encounter a gap.
All right. I just wanted to understand that.
You know, at one of the previous hearings, what was told to us was if the RFP that went out allowed for multiple awards, that would have fixed the problem.
That could have fixed, well.
Because then you would have been able to award
it would
two
have provided
contracts.
more options. Let's say that.
So why not just take the exact RFP that you had and just change that multiple versus going through all this money, time, effort for two contracts?
You know, yeah, ideally that would have been, the most expeditious way to do it. But once the procurement was terminated, then we are now back to a blank sheet, because if I'm the third or fourth offerer and you are coming in with a prepackaged program, then you've now advantaged the two offers that were finalists. And that's why we have to back off completely.
No, why didn't you do that the first time though? When you made the changes? So you had the first RFP.
Yeah.
You made the changes. Why didn't you make the additional change at that time to allow multiple awards?
Yeah, we failed. We failed to do that. If I could do it, if I could turn the clock back, that's exactly what I would do. We didn't.
Why couldn't we came up with that idea after that?
Yeah, but Bonnie said if somebody had talked to her that's common.
So I guess why weren't you guys directed or being advised by your, one by the board, by other members of the board to look at that? Or, I mean, you're talking after the first, RFP that went out that got screwed up, and did nobody like look into that to say, hey, you guys, let's do it, this way? Or the other question I have is, even now that you're on the third one, what is the target now? Is the target that you guys looking at these two existing entities to split 50-50, or is it one entity is stronger than the other? You thinking on 80-20? I mean, like, what is the thought process? And I know you probably cannot get into full detail, but I think it leaves the question that we're on a third go round now. I mean, there had to be some kind of advising along the way. You look at a 12-member board.
Sure.
That I believe have specialty services, and with the specialty services that they have, they should have at least been allowed to question or, give direction. Or was this just, we're gonna listen to the chair from DBID and we just gonna micromanage this whole thing down?
No, it wasn't. Once the procurement was terminated, there is a healthy debate, not only at the full board level, but there is a branding standing committee that is agendized in a public meeting where these items are discussed. There is a standing committee called Ho'okahua, which looks at the kind of work that's going on in our communities. And so after the first and second go at this, there was active discussion going on. And so the decision was made. Well, one of the things that concerned the multiple awards were people coming in and using the RFP as a menu. I'll take these two items and just bid on that. And it produces a different dynamic when you start cutting up the scope of work that way. It was determined.
Well, I think what I'm trying to say is that apparently it was cut up. It was cut up to be targeted for certain things within the contract. At least that's the look that I'm looking from outside back towards you guys, that there was some kind of carving up going on to have targeted. And I'm always told that you screw up once, you learn from your lesson, and you try not to do it again. But then we come out on third screw up, and we're in the third go around. And while I know you guys working as hard as you can to make a go of it, like, how much more of this we're going to try and look through? Or you know what I'm saying?
Oh, no.
There's a lot of eyes on this. There's a lot of specialty people on this board. I kind of disappointed that, the pickup of it, and you having your SPO on this. Like, I just trying to wrap my head around the mindset of it.
Well, you can determine by the fact that the two RFPs, one of the things you can presume is one will focus on destination brand management and marketing, and the other one will focus on destination management and the development of support services, right? So you can pretty much presume that it's been divided along those lines. And there's work that goes in. One will focus on work that is primarily before the visitor arrives, and one is focused on the work that is going on in our islands on an ongoing basis. So generally, that's how the scopes have been assigned, right? And so the directors received the current draft of the scopes. Those scopes were reviewed by the board. We did it in executive session because there is some competitive issues that we're trying to protect. Competitive with other destinations I'm talking about.
So you're talking on this third RFP?
Yes.
So I guess my issue with that is, I think this is so important not to have the director there, knowing that he approved it, kind of just, I don't know why would he not be there? I mean, I would think it would have been important enough to have that conversation and to sit there and give input. That just doesn't sit well with me at all.
I cannot speak to the director's schedule, but he did make it clear to the board that he had a hard stop. And I sensed, I can't speak for him, that he thought he had resolved his concerns with them in that open session.
Yes. Thank you.
This is almost, I mean, it's like a real predictable bad movie. Because you know that this third go around is really because you were, when you did that mediation process between the previous two bidders, and the mediation is really two contracts. And so that's what we're end up. This plan now is the mediation plan.
Yeah, this plan is not the mediation plan.
Except if it ends up being the two bidders that everyone.
Based on the mediation.
If it ends up being the two bidders,
yeah,
then it is.
Yeah, it's based on that.
Yeah, it's not the mediated plan, is all I can say.
But it's based on that plan.
Yeah, I mean, we did not use the plan mediated by the previous DBED director as the basis to initiate this new scope of work. In fact, we were cautioned.
Because it's like you said earlier, now you got to justify a new scope of work. Because if you were to do what we had talked about at the beginning, then it would be opening us up for more lawsuits. So now you got to justify changes to both RFPs, at least somewhat significant,
sure,
so that you can go back out, so that the exact same two bidders can now bid for the respective parts of what was once one contract.
No, I agree. I mean, one of the highlights of this whole chaos over the last 15 months is that the two RFPs that were originally issued by HCA produced a very competitive RFP process, right? The first time in really the history of the industry.
It did, but then it was flawed with so many missteps.
Not true.
People were in the sense where people openly now you have this bidding process. That's the only difference. Before, when HTA didn't have to follow procurement, it was very quiet. I mean, it could have been competitive, but it was so quiet, none of us would have known.
No, when they went to 5 major marketing areas, it was very competitive. We had how many people bidding for each one? So this is not the most competitive. We only had 2 bidders. How can it be the most competitive?
Competitive in the sense that you had, during that process, 3 teams that were legitimate contenders for the award.
And how many did they have when we did the 5 major marketing?
I'm sorry, I could barely hear you.
How many did you have when you did the 5 major marketing?
How many teams did we have?
Yes.
Yeah, so if you include Japan and how many total was everybody?
A lot.
Oh, all the major markets you're talking about, yeah.
I mean, that was the most competitive.
5.
That's when we broke up HVCB and we were threatened because everybody wanted HVCB to get the whole contract as they had, and we split it up. And that's why we're able to do this now. Because prior to that, they had a hold on and nobody could bid against them.
No, I agree. My comment about the competitive nature is limited to the US MMA, but I understand.
No, to say that that's the most competitive HTA ever had, that's not a true statement.
But even if you went down this process, though, this part has been flawed because, people were in the room that weren't supposed to be in the room. I mean, there's lots of those type of things that
I've since had that corrected. If you go back to the December 12th hearing, you said, do you believe that RFE1, RFE2, the processes were conducted fairly and according to procurement law, right? And SBO came back and said, from what I understand, they were conducted fairly. Okay, this is from the transcript. There are some issues that I'm finding out after about additional people in the evaluation room. Okay. Since then, I've met with SBO. The presence of non-voting evaluation members is permitted. Okay, my presence is permitted and administrative support is permitted in that. And so
with comments?
No, not with making comments. We're there, I'm there simply as an observer, the staff observing. What the staff is doing is providing administrative support. And if there's a need to do additional research or reference checks and that type of thing, but the presence of non-voting evaluation members is permitted. And we wanted to make sure that we got that clarity. And she went on further in that testimony to say that she had no indication that there were comments being made.
Well, kind of after the fact, I think everyone's going to try to cover up what they can.
All I can go is by, yeah, because we're paying attention to all of this, is I guess what I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, no, paying attention to it would have been after the first time going to meet with the procurement officer, not after the second time go meet with the procurement officer, so that when you do it the third time, now you're in compliance.
Correct. What you just described pertains to me personally, but members of the HTA staff were convening or conferring with the SBO about these matters. Frankly, if the SBO at the time this was being conducted, if our state procurement officer was no longer employed there, had said everybody vacate the room except voting members, I would have been the first one out. But that's not what happened.
No, not the state procurement officer, the chief procurement.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
Yeah. Now she thinks she's fired because of your statement.
And hungry. So
yeah. Senator Wakai.
Thank you. Director Sarias, something you said to Senator Kim earlier kind of intrigued me, because if I heard you correctly, you put all of those deadlines on Mr. DeFries because you had anticipated having all of the RFP worked out by the state of the state. That was under the direction of the governor, or was that your thought process that you wanted it done by that deadline?
Is my thought process based on the outcome of the December 22nd board meeting. I believe that they discussed issuing the RFP. So I had that report back to me as to what happened at that board meeting. Deputy Director was there and attended on behalf of DBIT. And I was told that that was decided by the board, and staff was instructed to move forward with the RFPs. And so that's why I believe that the deadline, the first reply back that I got had January 17th as the issue date for the request for proposals. And so that's why I believed it was to be done by that date, which was before the state of state, which was on January 23rd, I believe. So that's why I was under the impression that that's the date was to be released.
And Mr. DeFries, were you under that same assumption?
Not only the same assumption, but extremely concerned, because again, the date cannot go public in advance of the RFP being posted.
Yeah, but internally, that's not public. If he actually emailed you and said, look, this is a timeline we need to meet to get this out.
Yeah, what he was receiving from me and what this sequence of communication and requests are updates, right? So we're furnishing drafts, and in that draft stage.
But was there an understanding between the two of you as to when those RPs had to go out?
There was no hard date.
The January 17th deadline date was not a hard date for you.
It was something that I think that the director wanted to see happen, right? But it was not a hard. As long as we're in this drafting mode, these dates can move, and they do move. And I'll go on to tell you that one of the challenges we're having immediately right now.
I mean, it cannot move that much.
No, it can't move that much.
Because
but
if not,
won't.
money's lapsed, you don't get the RFP out.
No. It's not gonna move that recklessly, but it can move. Okay, and when this does go public, you'll be able to see what that movement is about. And I believe it's a reasonable slide. One of the things I wanted to mention that is challenging us at the moment and is that the evaluation committee is made up of subject experts that reflect expertise relative to the HTA strategic plan and relative to the scope in each. And I'm just speaking about the brand marketing side of it, right? It's difficult to find, a challenge to find experts in Hawaii tourism who are not connected in some way with HVCB, right? And on the other hand, it's kind of like if you enter your daughter in a beauty contest and I make the mother a judge, right? To go judge against the rest of the contestants, that there's going to be a partiality. So we're trying to work through that with SBO to understand what separation from that needs to be. One of the suggestions that has come up is, oh, maybe we can get tourism experts from outside Hawaii, from non-competitive destinations, right?
Why not have all these conversations like way before? Because the first RFP went out how many months ago?
15 months. Yeah.
And only now you guys are having.
No, it's not only now. It was a challenge then. It's still an ongoing challenge. That's all I'm saying. It was a challenge then.
Are you having two separate judging boards, two separate groups of people judging?
Two separate evaluation committees. Correct.
And one last question. So from the time on this timeline, 12/27/22, that is on the director's report to us, to 1/20/23, has your board met between that time?
Between, what were those two dates?
December 27th.
Yes.
And then the last date that each state provided draft to RFP, 1/20/23.
Let me check. Did we have a meeting? It's all blurred. I know that we moved the late December up a week. Right. So it went from, we moved it up a week in December because of the holidays. And then the next time it convened was last week, Thursday.
Okay, so the point I'm trying to make is you were giving drafts, but you couldn't have anything concrete because your board hasn't met to finalize it. Is that correct?
Yes, I mean.
No, but the board didn't even have any kind of say on the last RFP.
The last RFP being.
The second one or the first one?
No, the board did
the
have.
Full board?
Yes.
Okay, when we were here, the chair had said that they were talking to just a few people.
No, I mean, we ultimately need to get this in front of the board in some way, right? So I can't recall exactly what he said, but there was
and then there were discussions about just the board leadership.
The board leadership is more frequently engaged, as are the standing committee chairs for brand marketing and the community whole Kahua committee. So they would be more frequent just by nature of the roles they play.
So then if you had the draft RFP, it goes out to the board and the board members can actually change the RFP.
No. And what we're doing is they're looking at RFP summaries, right? That bullet pointed, they're not looking at the actual RFP. They're looking at the scope that is summarized, right? The RFP document at one point was 191 pages, and I think we're down to 150 right now. So as you guys know, it's a technical document as much as anything else.
So what quarter is it going to get out of?
First quarter.
Okay, so if it's not in the first quarter, at that point, is it appropriate that the DBID director say, okay, it didn't get out first quarter, so then now I'm taking it?
It would be appropriate for him to revisit that.
Because that's right, that's what I think should have happened, is there should have been some agreement on when is this thing going out? And if you don't want to tell us the date, that's fine, but you guys should have had a date in mind. And
Thank
if
you, sir.
certain things didn't happen to get to that point, I
That,
can kind
that
of
was, that was discussed at the HTA board meeting, that the board would hold staff to those
and
dates
then the
that they
awkward thing
provided.
is, it's not just one of the contracts, but it should be both. Why would it just be one?
And why were you compelled to announce it at our meeting here and not even go to the board? What compelled you to do that?
I mean, I made a mistake.
Ego?
I made a mistake.
Okay, any other questions? I mean, I know people have questions, but maybe we'll just leave it to subject matter. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Adjourned.